okay. And of course, now this thing completely screwed up with the doohickey. All right, let's try this again. We'll do it live. Whatever the hell you want to talk about, talk is going live in 3, 2, 1. Oh yeah! It's David Ladd After Dark. Drop your pants and grab your ankles because here comes Big Daddy Dave. All right, and that was the most inappropriate intro I could ever think of saying at any given time. And hey, Brian Joyce is here. Extructus Expectrionis. It sounds like something you'd hear on a Harry Potter thing, right? Extructus Productions. But Brian Joyce from Australia, good day. Thanks for being here. We are live on Facebook, and we're going to talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about today. A lot of us here are from CoCoTALK.live, but anybody's welcome to join us. You can join us on Skype. The address is CoCoTALK at CoCoTALK.live. Let me start by introducing who we have with us currently. The lovely and talented Grant Leedy is here. Grant, how are you?
Hey, how you guys doing today?
We're doing good. We're doing good. The guy who hijacked the CoCoTALK website today.
Yeah,
Coco
right.
Fest,
I only host it.
Yeah. But Steve Bjork from sunny Southern California is with us here. The man with the fashionable fedora hat here, Mr. James Diffendaffer. Thanks for being here.
Hello.
And Richard Lorbieski of Boyson Technologies is here. Welcome, Richard.
His mic must not be working again.
I hear the train.
Yeah. And we have, of international fame, Jacob Moore is here with us and his agent Bruce. Hey, Jacob, big star. How are you?
Hey.
All right. He is an international celebrity, voice talent, artiste, creative consultant. He is just Jacob's job is to make Bruce look good. Bruce takes all the credit, but it's Jacob's brain power that makes it all happen. Glad to have you here, Jacob. And what's that? Who's that putz sitting next to you there? Oh yeah, that's Bruce Moore. Hey, Bruce, how are you? And then we have, as seen as PenFest 99 and 2000, signing autographs this year at CoCoFest. It is Jason, the Coco Man, is with us. Hello, Jason.
Hello. As seen, but not seen right now.
You have the
reboot.
Are you using the Boyson Tech webcam? Is that the problem there?
Actually, I already sent that back to Jim.
Our resident Apple guy, Mark D. Overholzer, is with us.
Hey there.
Maker of fine quality products and fixer of lesser quality products, Jim Brain from Retro Innovations is with us.
Woohoo!
And last but certainly not least, Sir David Ladd, Lord of the Floppies, is here. Randy is here. Hey, Randy, thanks for joining us. Michael Brandt has joined us, and Brian Joyce says, good day, fellas. Yeah, there's something weird with the plugin I have with the Facebook Live chat plugin thingy here. It just kind of like doesn't want to work. I think we've tried this before, and it's, at some point in time I just say F it, and we're going to stop worrying about it. So don't worry about the fact that you can't see the live chat in the video feed. You can see it on the Facebook page, so that's good. All right, guys. Well, we only talked for 3 hours earlier today. It almost seems like it was, it's a couple hours
6
ago.
hours, yes.
Yeah. So, is there anything left to be said after 3 hours of...
Good question.
Well, there is that new Coco MPI.
Yep. We can't stop talking about it.
Nope, not at all.
Oh, yeah.
I know you guys are drooling over it. It's like you guys have never seen a new piece of hardware in your entire life.
It's just
all marry it.
It's just that over on Discord we've been talking about multiple RS-232 packs to help us, and we're only dealing with a 2-pack multi-port, and and how we could expand stuff like that. And then Ed gives us not just a 4-port multi-pack. He gives us something that's got 2 RS-232 ports and a sound chip that is really good.
Yeah.
Well, I think in all fairness, what we're seeing right now though is, it hasn't shipped. So while I have no question to doubt his design, and he's never failed before, and until it's shipping, as good as we know it isn't until it is. So, but
We just gotta hope he doesn't get hit by a bus or something.
Yeah. I think that's his biggest challenge is being, one man.
Yeah.
Yeah, one man has to do so many things.
Okay, we'll chip in, pay for his medical insurance.
we need medical insurance. We need life insurance.
No. Life insurance
to
doesn't
Canada.
help us. Medical insurance helps. It makes sure he keeps himself happy and healthy and like that. But the thing is, life insurance, that's only when he can't do anything for us.
Yeah, so actually what we need Secret Service.
Yeah.
We need to
Well,
protect.
he can move up here to Canada, and we can keep him healthy for a while with our doctors. and at the same time, we'll take lots of photocopies of all of his designs and everything, and in case anything bad happens, we can.
Right. If there was ever a need to download, a human brain.
No, he's got a pretty good track record. After all, he's got one device out there that pretty much is kind of taken the Coco retro market by storm. And he keeps up with making more of them.
Are you talking about the Coco SDC?
You got it.
Right. Which,
who doesn't have one of those? Actually,
don't
that
have
would
one
be
yet,
me.
do you?
I've got to put an order in for myself. But yeah, I don't. But everybody I talked to, why don't you got one?
Actually, Darren Atkinson developed it, but Ed keeps up with demand, so.
Yep.
Absolutely.
But
we know
Go
he
ahead.
can do it because he's done MPIs before. This isn't a big stretch for him, and he's done sound chips before. This isn't a big stretch.
Right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. No, when I was developing for Tandy, one of the things that you always had to do was look forward to the future. I was giddy with the Coco 3 for the most part, though it was missing a sound chip. But still, I was giddy about it. And I had developed software for it, almost a year before it came out. So, this is nothing new.
Right. Did you have access to a prototype, a Coco 3 prototype?
Early production.
Okay.
And matter of fact, my version, the Gimme chip was version. Well, the first one I got was, now that I think about it, was a B, and then I got a C, and then finally I got a D.
Okay.
I think Dale Lear and Rick Adams had access to one as well, if I remember.
Yes, they did.
The story
Yes.
recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Richard's on cam. Richard, can you hear us?
We saw that bite.
Doing good.
Caught you with your mouth full.
Did you bring
Full
enough
of what?
to share?
No, this is not Blazing Saddles. I didn't bring gum for everybody.
Richard, would you like me to
I
play
did bring my shirt.
Oh, look at you with the I'm a coconut shirt, wearing your colors. Oh, did you get the After Dark shirt, Mark? Show it off. I haven't seen that yet. I've ordered mine. They haven't come in.
Hey, that looks nice.
That is nice. The After Dark.
Very nice.
That is nice. Thanks for ordering that, Mark.
Woohoo!
We can't hear you, Mark, but we can see you. So, if only we knew a guy who did pro audio that could help out Mark Overholzer. So.
Sorry, forgot to unmute. My noisy keyboard. I don't want to distract everything.
He's got to switch his computer in the background to a Coco instead of that Apple sitting there.
Yeah, that's a good looking shirt.
It'll get rotated.
Yeah.
Oh, you rotate
it's Mark's
through?
birthday too.
That's
Actually-
right. It's Mark Overholzer's birthday today.
See the black TV back there behind it? That's my Coco 3 monitor right now.
Ah,
Sure it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, Coco's
it
on the other
is.
side. Coco's
I
on the
saw
other
when
side.
he was moving a camera around. It's over there.
Very cool. Yeah, that After Dark shirt looks good. I actually kind of remastered all the artwork in Photoshop to make it higher definition, higher dot pitch and higher quality, so it would not look grainy and stuff as it was printed. And because I made it very large on the shirt. It's a very large graphic. It takes up most of the T-shirt real estate.
On his shirt.
Yeah, it's very it looks really good, Mark.
Yeah, I got the dark gray shirt with it. So
okay, I got one that's kind of some type of burgundy-ish T-shirt, and then I got the 2-color jersey. So it's like a gray shirt with black sleeves. So we'll see how that comes out. Very, very cool. So besides the MPI, which we're all excited about, the Multipack interface with sound and serial ports and all kinds of other goodies. What else is on our minds this evening?
Boy, we're going for a letdown from such a high point.
Are we done talking about the Multipack, or is there more?
Of course, one of the things that we have to do is get the information of the Multipack into the hands of the guys that are developing emulators, so they can emulate that Multipack to help with development.
Yep.
So, there's a whole phase of things that have to happen to send around. But I think we've really got a device here that's going to be a common carrier for the CoCo.
It's got enough stuff in it that you think about buying another one. So, even if you have one or two.
Can you plug a Multipack into a Multipack?
Somebody already asked that on Facebook on the group. Already asked that. But, it's, I think it's going to spur more development since you have more slots and more RS-232s. We're going to see more and more devices come out. So,
well, no, so I was half joking when I said that, but a serious question. You have the one side, the card edge, that is the male side that plugs into the cartridge slot on the CoCo. Would it not be possible to have a female side on the right-hand side and make these things kind of stackable? Or does that create new addressing challenges?
Ask Jim.
Addressing challenge.
Jim would know about that.
You have to design it with that in mind. There's a lot of work that goes into making them something that you can piggyback. So the 4-port one that I designed has the ability for you to extend it to be an 8-port by putting two of the back end boards together, but you have to plan for that. So he's going for small size, so I don't know where you'd put that second unit. He could put a connector on the far end of it that's facing out the same direction as the like TI used to do with their sidecars. You have the right. I wouldn't go ad nauseum on that, but you could put the one connector plugs into the CoCo, and then at the end of that board, there doesn't look like there's anything right there. Well, there is. He's got his RS-232 stuff right there, but you might be able to put that on the back. And if you put it on the back, then you could put another one right off to the side there. But he'd have to plan for that. So
maybe you could just stack them like that CoCo VGA to get it to fit in the Dragon or something.
Yeah.
like what Brendan had to do with the Dragon to get the exactly. That was a cluck. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Richard's
looked like
wearing his shirt
it's
too.
not crazy.
Yeah, but that looked like a typical Jim Brain final production
Give me
project there. So
that was the production unit, huh?
yep.
Yeah, right.
Well, some people are already working on much more slots. You look at the pictures that were posted, in the discussion of his Multipack, there was an 8 and a 16 slot adaptation.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing what you can do with the proper tools. Photoshop.
Photoshop, right? Well, you were able to quickly add a kitchen sink to it, Steve. So
Yeah. I use Photo Impact for that.
I'm still working on the cup holder thing. So
that's what the CD-ROM tray was for before, right? Your cup holder.
Value add.
Add.
Well, that's when coffee ran in the machine.
Yeah. And when somebody walks up and says, "What's this button for?"
Home control. We can do home automation off of this thing, whatever.
So I've got a question. Now there's that chip in there, but how is it going to be programmed? Someone's going to have to write some software to do that, or is it going to have to, the basic programmers have a chance to get at it somehow, or?
Yeah, it'll be. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just sitting there on the bus, ready for you. The only question I have is, how is he going to? He's got an extra task ahead of him because, as you all know, the I/O space is a bit crowded, and since you don't know what cartridge one's going to plug into one of those 4 slots, you've got to find some spaces where these 15550 or 16550s and the whatever it is, the 272 or whatever you're using, doesn't conflict with something that's already in there, or he set them up as to be their own, essentially a virtual slot. So like all that stuff on the board is really slot 5, let's say, and so if you want to access it, you have to go to slot 5, which is not horrible because there's no software for it today. So you can say, well, all the software that would be written for it would be written to move to slot 5 and check for it. I think OS 9 and Nitrous 9 could handle slots greater than 4, but you'd have to do that, right? But right now there's no technical detail, so you don't know, how it's being set up. But you want to make sure that you're not going to interfere with something else and still allow somebody to use it. So let's say that he's picked FF68 or whatever to put his 16550s. Well, it's great, except what if you had a real need for a modem for an RS-232 pack, to a mouse driver or something like that that doesn't require such a significant bandwidth, and you want that third RS-232 port? Well, you need to be able to shift or move that, 16550 somewhere else so that it doesn't conflict with the RS-232 pack. People are okay and happy about the idea of a 4-port MPI, and that's great, but you have to make sure that you're not going to be any less functional than the real MPI that you have to base it against, which is the Tandy MPI. So just a lot of consideration. I think, what I see as a problem for Ed right now is, it's a really cool deal. It's all his packaged item, and he's got it prototyped, or he's got the board he's going to order, and he's going to be working on whatnot. But Steve, as you saw and commented on in the chat or in the Facebook comments, everybody now is like, oh, okay, so she's going to get the boards next week, maybe do a couple days of debugging, and then be ready to sell. And I don't think that's nearly the amount of time it's going to take. I think he even said it was going to take him a couple months to figure it out. And I think when you get to all these corner cases, that's where you have challenges. Not only, one of the things that I found when I was working on an MPI was that, you put all those slots out there and they end up being little antennas, and so you gotta even with it being as slow or close to the machine as it is, you got to be careful with all that stuff. And the other one that I realized, and hopefully he's I don't know how he's addressing this issue in the mini MPI. I don't have one, but the logic chip he's using, which is the 9572, it's a Xilinx chip. It's a great chip. Obviously very economical and offers the ability to do basically a one-chip MPI. However, it's not a 5-volt chip. It's a 3.3-volt chip. It is 5-volt tolerant, but only when powered. And so one of the challenges that I had when I was designing MPI is you can't have the signals from the CoCo get to the MPI if you're ever going to be in a situation where somebody will have left the MPI unplugged and it won't get power. So that's
that
a
last
challenge. Part
again.
So you have 2 power sources. You have the power source from the CoCo, and you have the power. For both of his MPIs, I think his mini MPI has an external power supply as well. So you have 2 power sources.
Yeah.
So if you have 2 power sources, the idea is the cartridges would get powered by the external power supply, right?
Exactly.
Right. However, the external cartridges, let's say it's a simple cartridge like a game cart. Well, game carts have the cart line and the cue line connected together. So they're going to drive some of the pins on the bus as soon as power is applied. But if the 9572 chip is powered by the CoCo and the CoCo's off, then that 5-volt power is going to go to the chip, but the chip is going to be unpowered, which means its I/O lines are not 5-volt tolerant, which means it'll blow it up. So you got to be careful about all that.
Sounds like the easiest solution there is to have something in the way of the power circuit to disable it unless there's power from the CoCo applied.
That's
or
right.
put in buffers.
He's got buffers on the CoCo side. You can look on both this MPI. I mean, on this one, he just took if you look at it, he just took the mini MPI and he stretched it, right? He stretched it to another 4 ports or another 2 ports, and then he started adding other stuff onto it. So he's got the same buffers that he has for his mini MPI in there, and that takes care of the signals from the CoCo. But you got to make sure that. So I think the way he's probably got it set up is he has the chips, the buffer chips, which are 5-volt, and the CPLD. He's got them all powered from the external power supply, so they don't even engage until external power is on, which would be the way to do it. But you got to think about stuff like that, because when you're testing, you can get it all working and then get it to somebody's hands and they go, "Oh, sorry, Jim, sorry, Ed, I plugged it in and I forgot to plug in the MPI and I turned on the CoCo and smoke's coming out of the unit." And you're like, "Well, that's the end of that."
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he'll take care of it, and probably was listening very closely to the discussion that you just had. And if he hasn't taken care of it, he'll take care of it ASAP. But
I figure he will. It's not a matter of him being able to take care of it. I just think, I mean, even if he's taking care of that, there's like a myriad of things. I worry about all of the euphoria around it because I think it's going to be months before he's able to. I don't want people to get upset. Like they're like, "Well, I thought it was going to be available." Well, this cool thing takes a lot of time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like shameful plug here. You've been working on CoCoMem and CoCoMem Junior, and you have a lot of challenges on your end to pull off everything you want it to do, compatibility wise, hardware wise, software wise, and so even though you know what you want and you know what you're doing, it's not an instant home run.
Yeah, true. It did get a lot of comments and a lot of obviously you guys devoted a good chunk of the day to talking about it, and we're still talking about it. So obviously he's got mind share.
It's the news of the week, really. Mm-hmm. At least for us on Discord.
Yeah, it is.
And you spend a little time there on Discord. You know what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
Until you have to go take care of return
warranty
authorizations.
Yep, right. And I'm not doing returns. Not
Troll
doing
talk.
Lorbieski's returns.
Yeah, and you're not doing shipping either.
That's just that's cruel.
You guys are so mean to each other. Can't we all get along?
Oh, shut up, David.
What?
David Ladd, always the peacemaker.
Yeah.
Hey, Richard.
Piece of what? I don't know.
I don't want to say anything, Grant. This is a family show.
No, it's not. This is After Dark. If you want to tell him how hard he can F himself, you're welcome to.
Hey, Richard. Screw you.
Double back to you.
Yeah, I'm rubber, you're glue.
Rubber and you're glue.
Those two can be very interesting combinations.
As excited as you all are for this new mega mini MPI with the slicer, dicer, Julienne, it comes with a set of Ginsu knives and a bamboo steamer.
And the kitchen sink.
And the kitchen sink. There was something else that I think some of us might have been excited for, and maybe still are excited or not, but Ready Player One did... oh, wait a second. Richard Lorbieski is holding up a boomerang.
Oh, yeah. These are the production boards, but I haven't...
Hold it up higher because the Skype faces are covering it.
Oh.
Higher. Not closer, higher. There you go. Up,
yeah, there you go. Okay.
Boomerang 512 kilobytes.
Yep.
Wow.
Kilobytes, not megabytes. Kilobytes. Yeah.
Kilobytes. 512 kilobytes. That's
Yep.
what it says. It says 512 kilobytes.
Okay, now throw it and see if it comes back.
I'm not buying one. It's not big enough.
There goes. See, I threw it.
Does it have
Look,
a
he
sound
came
card?
back.
Does it have
Wow.
a sound chip? I'm not
Yes,
gonna
it
buy it. It
does.
has a sound chip. Okay.
Does it have quadruple serial ports running at 9 TEPL speed?
Absolutely, whatever you want. It even has a cup holder. Even
Lots of
a
wire.
metric cup holder.
Does it have Playboy mud flaps? Is what I want to know.
Absolutely, and a velvet Elvis painting to go along with it.
What about dogs playing poker? Come on now.
Yep.
Now, Richard, will you have them at the Coco Fest?
That is the plan. Yes.
And how much are you selling them for?
See, the Grant Levy price is $159.
Oh, thanks. And the
Free
regular
shipping?
price is?
No, actually, the price is going to be $29.
And is that going to go up after
$29.
$29.
Wow.
Coco Fest?
Now, does that come with a return label included with it to save us on shipping to send it
Yes,
back?
it'll be shipped directly to Iowa.
All the timing issues have been resolved then?
Yes.
Awesome. What did it need? Just a little bigger capacitor or something, or?
No, it was noise problems.
Oh, okay.
I guess it helps if you keep your Coco off of the TV you're trying to view it on.
Yeah, that too. That was one of the things that was kept screwing me up, is because when I was testing it and I wanted to make some room, I would just set it on top of the monitor, and yeah, that doesn't work right. So.
And you wonder why Tandy put shielding on the circuit board.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, bring that test so we can try out other memory expansions on sitting on top of the monitor, see how well they do.
Oh, sure.
Yep.
You might
So,
find
Richard,
yours
what's your
will
next
work.
big project?
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't figured out what I want to copy, so give me some time. Maybe a multi-pack interface.
With a sound chip.
Yes, with the sound chip.
Or maybe you
Sound
should
chips,
just come out with the sound chip cartridge for those folks that already have a multi-pack.
Right.
Hey, I have a great idea. How about a Coco Flash?
Yeah, absolutely.
With
How about
the sound chip on it.
A Coco Flash with the sound chip and Orchestra 90, 8 serial ports.
Well, yeah, a couple of things I really want to do is a keyboard emulator and also a real-time clock. Those are the two things I'd like to do.
Keyboard emulator?
Yes. To plug your PS2 keyboard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, keyboard adapter.
Keyboard
Yeah,
adapter.
Speaking of the Coco Flash, who sells the plastic case for that? Is it going to be John Strong?
John sells a case for it. I sell the same cases like that Mike Rowan and like John Linville uses and whatnot. I've got a batch of them here. You can buy them in the store, but they don't have the. There's 3 holes you have to drill in it. One for the headphone jack and 2 for the buttons. And I don't have those. I don't mill them yet. So John's got pre taken. It's all cases are all done and everything. So I'd probably recommend he set you up with a case if you're interested.
Yeah, because it really does help. But otherwise, it's a little hard to put it in the slot without having to really look at it.
Nope,
Right.
I understand.
I was meaning to ask you about that, Jim, because I noticed you had a shiny red cartridge on your Go 4 Retro website, and I was wondering if that was the exact same cartridge or is a uncanny coincidence.
Nope, it's the exact same cartridge. I just bought them because people were asking, "Hey, do you have Coco? I have Coco cartridges." And I'm like, "Well, no, but you can get them from over here." And they didn't have a website. You got to basically just email. I forget it was you can email Mike or whatever, and
Yeah.
so I put them. And then the other one is that it's time as I get some time, I probably will mill some and then offer the Coco Flash in a case. One of the things I'm trying to do right now is figure out if there's a way to dye them a different color, because I'm not always wild about having my cartridges be red. I kind of like to have them different colors, but we'll see.
Airbrushing.
Plasti
blue.
dip.
Blue would be pretty cool.
Well, they already have the mold. Could always get some different color ones made.
Yeah,
It's usually
You could
Yeah,
try
you should.
plasti dip. Really, seriously, you can the spray paint, the plastic in a can.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah,
if
I'm
you don't
sure
like the
the-
color, you can always change it.
Yeah, I
take
think
it off and rip.
the problem is not necessarily the capability. The problem is the time, right? I just need to find some time to figure out what works and what doesn't, and kind of get that going.
Well, if you wouldn't be busy with all those warranty returns, maybe you might get some.
Can you kick him off the Skype channel or something?
You can help out there, Richard.
Yes.
You taught me all this thing about trolling, so it's your fault.
I am so sorry.
I think it's called karma. Instant karma.
Now tell us what you really think about him, Jim.
I could go there. I could. I won't.
Oh,
but I could.
I know he could. But yeah, really, Jim sells really good stuff. I would definitely do business with him.
Well, it's better than Nick. I mean, goodness.
Yeah.
I think you should just buy the Coco SDC. You don't need a Coco Flash. Who needs crap like that? With friends like Nick, who needs enemies?
Talk about a turd in the punch bowl, right? It was
Oh,
just
my
we spent like 4 minutes talking about how wonderful the Coco Flash was. And it's like, oh, but you can just do all this on the Coco.
Yeah, I mean, without Jim's help, the Paragon adapter that I am building, I mean, without Jim's help, I would still be trying to make the PC board, put that together. I mean, he has helped tremendously in that project. So I give him a lot of credit for that.
Yay.
Yeah. You know, tell you the honest truth, this community for the Coco has really gotten so much better in the last decade or so. So many people are willing to work together. There's not as many islands as there used to be. It kind of reminds me back of the days of the mid-'70s with the Homebrew Computer Society. Everybody was working together to make their hobby better. And when somebody came up with an idea, they praised them for the idea. Everybody went log into it, and away you go. And it's nice to see that again.
Definitely. Or
Yeah,
for some of us, for the first time. For you, you're singing it again. For some of us, we're singing it for the first time. So,
yeah, because I watched all the companies come in and create their kingdoms, Apple, you know, it's just it's kind of nice to see in the Coco community that we're finally working together.
Yep. Brian Schubring, the music man, has joined us. Hey, Brian, how are you?
Yes, he says nothing. Evidently, he's not very happy to see us.
Well,
No
I
problem.
would like to say thank you to everyone that's here, because most of the people here has been the ones that have given me feedback and tips on how to actually design hardware.
Gee, I thought we were going to give you feedback about your personality.
I thought it was all the feedback all the things he breaks.
Yes.
No, he just reveals the hidden truths in them.
The hidden truths. The truth may hurt, but it will set you free.
And we're all better for that.
All right. Well, I do want to talk about Ready Player One without giving away spoilers. And how many of us have seen the movie at this point?
Not I.
Crickets.
Not I.
Which movie?
Ready Player One.
Well, too bad. If they haven't watched it by now, spoiler alert.
Some of us have this thing called a life.
Okay, we're getting echo from somebody.
But Steve, if it was a Disney movie, you would have been the first in line.
Actually, I never got around to seeing Marvel's Black Panther. I meant to go. Yeah, but I hey,
It's a
look.
terrible movie.
All right, let me spoil it for
Wonder
you.
Woman.
I'm going to spoil it for you guys. Darth Vader is Luke's father. Okay, there.
No.
That's so last century.
Definitely.
It really was.
What the heck, Jacob?
That's a nice graphic.
I don't. What are we looking at? Oh, are we missing something here?
The instant message over on the Skype.
All right, I gotta see
Bottom,
what's going on here.
bottom right corner.
Okay. There's just too much going on here. CoCoTALK After Dark.
Jacob's doing his Bill the Cat impression.
Nice colors there, Jacob.
CoCoTALK After Dark.
Yeah, right? We're cuckoo for CoCoTALK.
I was going to say it looks more like Miley Cyrus, but okay. Never mind.
Be nice to him.
Wow.
Oh my!
Wow.
Ouch.
Red shirt, you're going to be getting ganged up.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Jim. Blame it on Jim. He got me onto this stuff, okay?
No, that's true.
And moving back to Steve and his talk about Ready Player One.
Yes.
Hey, there's Brian. Brian, can you hear us?
Of course I can.
There you go. Of course
My
you
mic
can't.
was off.
Ah. So without giving away any spoilers as far as what is in the movie, I think it's safe to say we can say what isn't in the movie. And us Coco Nuts were hoping to see either a Coco and or possibly Dungeons of Daggerath. And, of course, neither of those were in the movie. So Dungeons of Daggerath was one of the, I guess, the first challenge. Not the first, actually the second challenge, right? It was the second challenge you had to go through to get one of the keys or whatever. So the Coco nor Dungeons of Daggerath made it into the movie. So us as Coco Nuts, we were looking forward to and hoping for that to be there. Of course, it's not there. So as much as I would say I am not pleased about the lack of Coco and the lack of Daggerath, I would say that I am not disappointed in the movie. The movie was very entertaining. Now, the movie was almost a mutant strain of the original story because all of the quests have been changed, and it was kind of a hipster, kinder, gentler version of the story because there was a little bit more violence and the stakes were a little higher and stuff like that in the book. But, it was definitely a good, entertaining movie. The visual effects were phenomenal. I saw it in 3D. The 3D was great. Same characters, same story, but most of the elements were changed. And I guess if you want to find the silver lining there, the silver lining is if it was exactly like the book, as much as it would have been nice to see, there wouldn't have been too many surprises. So because things were changed, it was kind of a nice surprise to see what they replaced it with. And everything was kind of period appropriate. So it all felt like it fit. It was just different, So I didn't hate it. I enjoyed it. I was entertained. But the only disappointing fact was just not seeing or hearing about the Coco in the movie. So there's my 2 cents.
Pretty much it was inspired by the book, and that's about it.
It was more than inspired. It was just this variation. It's the same, like I say, same story, same characters. But they just changed the challenges. So,
among other things.
Yeah. You got to make it into a movie. So a movie format is a different format.
Also, a book can be much longer, too.
Yeah. But I would recommend if you're a fan of the book, go see it.
Or if you are not a fan of the book, still go see it. It's the special effects is pretty good too.
Yeah, it's a good thrill ride. It's a good summer blockbuster type movie.
I think you would enjoy it more if you haven't read the book.
Okay, fair enough.
And the pieces of video I've seen on the web, if you're definitely into a bit of movie and nerd culture, you're going to see a lot of familiar things. That's fair to say, Steve? Yeah.
Yes. And the funny thing is the story is about Easter eggs in a video game, but the movie is filled with Easter eggs, and is everything on the screen that you see is a nod to something from cinema, video game, or like you say, geek culture. So every character, every scene, every location, everything there is pulled from something iconic. So it's an incredible world just put together on this kind of retro nostalgia. So in that sense, yeah. That part was not disappointing either. Hey, and Florida David has joined us.
And one thing I was going to add, they did an interview with Steven Spielberg about some of the his culture stuff based on his movies and whatever that were in the book. They did not move those over to the movie because he didn't want to overladen the movie with things about him.
Okay, so that was very selfless of him to do.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Now, what was the, not to spoiler alert, kinda. What was the name of the Atari game? Was it called Adventure?
Adventure, yeah.
Yep.
I do not remember that game at all.
It was in the first 2 years of the Atari 2600. It was like one of the first games that came out. And then it was also got discontinued after a while.
Yeah, it had dragons that looked like ducks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they are seahorses. There's another. It looked like a damn seahorse was the dragon. But go ahead.
I was just going to say, got to remember, anytime a new game system comes out, they got to learn to walk before they can run. And as you know, the games get better and better. Look at what Activision was eventually able to do.
It also had its own Easter eggs as well. Adventure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How's everybody doing?
We're doing good, David. Welcome back.
So for a late join, I got derailed. I was about to join, and then something else happened.
No, not a problem. Yeah.
Just don't ask what we've been talking about for the last 2 hours. That's the running gag.
Good times. Yeah, but I liked it. What I will say is that I am not disappointed by seeing it, but one I was disappointed was the Tomb Raider movie, which I also saw, which was based on the 2013 reboot of the game, and it was, it was a retelling of that story, but it was an extremely watered down version of that story, and I did feel let down by that one. I didn't feel let down by Ready Player One. I just wanted Coco, But you got to have more cowbell. But I was definitely let down by Tomb Raider because they just really watered down a story that was really epic and supernatural and suspenseful and all kinds of stuff, and they made it very tame and very safe, which I just wasn't a fan of.
Who was the lead actress in that?
I don't remember her name, but it's a British chick. I don't know. It's on the internet somewhere.
Yeah.
She was great, though. She was a great actress. She played the part well. The acting was good. You can't blame the actor on the script, So I'm really critical of the story, not of the acting. The cinematography was great. The acting, she played the role. She was very physical. She was very convincing.
She did her own stunts. I remember.
She did a lot of her own stunts and stuff like that, which was cool. But yeah, it just really felt like they took a couple of really key sequences from the video game. They made those part of the trailer to get all the fans of the game that want to come out and see the movie. But the video game was just, the story was so epic, and the video game was completely R-rated with the amount of violence and language and everything else. And this was like a PG, version of that story, nowhere near the level of violence. And the main thing is too, is like if you remember the original Angelina Jolie version of Tomb Raider, there was an element of the supernatural in there. Tomb Raider is basically a female Indiana Jones, and Indiana Jones has always been about some type of huge supernatural issue that has to be dealt with. So the Angelina Jolie one was dealing with a huge supernatural issue. And this one, they didn't even make the protagonist supernatural. It's like she's not even this, Sun Queen, evil goddess. It turned out she just had a disease, a virus. And so, so this made it really safe, really tame. Tried to make it too realistic. And
sure, spoil it.
Yeah. It's been out for a month, so.
Well, sometimes we're waiting for the DVD on Netflix.
So
what it sounds like.
But yeah, I would definitely say go see Ready Player One. It's worth the watch.
And what about Rampage? You guys think that's going to be a good movie to see?
No.
I actually do. I think it will be.
Well,
the trailer looked really good.
The Rock been doing pretty good lately.
Yeah,
but
it'll be fine. But I don't think it'll be a great movie.
Yeah, it's kind of like they're taking the idea of Rampage, the video game, and you think they changed Ready Player One. You're looking for a lot of change in this one.
Remember, Ready Player One was an actual story. This was a game. There's not a lot of story to the game.
Yeah, that's the thing is, let's put it this way. Do you remember Battleship?
I was going to say that Battleship.
Oh, yes.
I intentionally didn't see it. That was one I knew was going to be bad.
You're watching the movie Battleship, and it's going along pretty good as, this film. And then all of a sudden, they're going for a grid of buoy markers. And you go, that's how they're putting the game into this movie, is that way? And then they go take, what's the battleship in Pearl Harbor that's sitting there that's still operational?
Arizona. Oh.
Arizona. They take the Arizona out. So you've got the Arizona battleship, and you've got them dealing with the buoy markers, and that's how they made Battleship video game movie.
Wow. Talk about a crowbar, huh?
You know, it's kind of this thing. They're reaching. They're really, really reaching.
Right.
Well, with Rampage, they're reaching.
Listen. Based on this, and because I've seen so many movies recently in the theater, I'm seeing a lot of these extended trailers in the theater. I am liking what I'm seeing with the Rampage trailer. I'm optimistic that it's going to be an entertaining thrill ride.
If you want to enjoy the film,
inspired by the game? Well,
my opinion is
an
not
action flick.
Just think of it as an action flick. Forget the fact there is ever a video game called Rampage. Forget that aspect, and you're going to enjoy the film.
Right.
All they're doing is they're borrowing the main characters, and that's
they're
not even the same.
I would.
They have a reptile. They have a wolf,
and they have the giant.
And they have the giant.
In the video game, those are humans that have been mutated into the monsters.
Right.
That's not the way the movie is.
And
because
George is even a man-like character.
George starts off as a white gorilla and mutates into a large gorilla.
Right. And so in that sense, they're trying to make it a little bit more grounded in believability, right? Like, this could possibly happen, right? A man that turns into a giant King Kong, that could never happen. But an existing gorilla that's hit by a magic space rock, this could potentially happen where he could just get bigger. It's a little bit more believable, right?
Ever so slightly.
It'll be every bit as... I think it'll be every bit as good as that Godzilla movie.
Oh Christ!
The one with Matthew Broderick. Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Definitely not as far fetched.
Last night on Jenny Kimball Live, they had The Rock on there, and he was on there promoting Rampage.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife goes, "Didn't you make a video game based on Rampage?" I go, "Yeah." So they're making a video game based on your movie? No. But they're calling it Rampage. Well, they borrowed the name.
Step away for a second, guys. Gotta let my cat out. Sorry.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's just like, having to explain to your wife, they made a movie on my video game. No, it's not like the other video game movies. No.
So speaking about Rampage, I recently, since I've been on the Coco here, I found the Coco version of Rampage, which I think personally is superior to the only other version I knew before that, which was the Apple II version of Rampage. Do we know if there's been any other ports of Rampage to other platforms, or is it just Apple and Coco?
Well, no, there was one for the Tandy 1000, and also for Commodore and all the other systems.
Oh, really?
But I've got an interesting story about the two Tandy versions of Rampage. Back in the day, we're getting close to the end of life, or close to end of life of the Coco. And the folks over that were handling the PC stuff, like the Tandy 1000, they didn't like the Coco. They wanted out of the store because they wanted more shelf space for their Tandy 1000 stuff. After all, they could charge more for the software and more for the computers and make more money in the same spot.
Mm-hmm.
So they set up a demo of Rampage on the Tandy 1000 and Rampage on the Coco 3. And everybody comes into the room and they go, look how much better this Rampage is than yours. I mean, the colors are right. The graphics are smooth. It's working well. The sound's even better. And then the guys from the Coco division said, by the way, you do know you're pointing to the Coco as the better version. That actually gave the Coco another year of life.
Wow. No, it really works well on the Coco. Mostly, my only other experience is the Apple II. On the Apple II, it's extremely sluggish, barely playable. but a lot more responsive on the Coco for sure.
Well, if you look in the little screens, you're going to see the Rampage is sitting off there on one of them. Do you notice who it's programmed by?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy who made Zaxxon.
Yeah. And this was done in a month.
Wow.
Yeah, and I got to say, it's very arcade. It's very true to the arcade, the way it
It
looks,
is very
feels, and
good.
plays. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I did the game in a month, and I got a little bonus, too, for that.
Nice.
Yeah, you nailed the graphics.
So here's the characters. Yeah, George, Lizzie, and Ralph.
Yeah, it's amazing that you can do that in a month.
Yep.
When I look at, I manage a bunch of software engineers. They cannot get much done in a month.
Are they using Java?
They're using
Yeah.
variety of things, but really in a month, they can barely write a document in a month. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's incredible. Hey, Steve, speaking about games, earlier today we were talking about Zaxxon, and so I was checking on my Coco SDC here. I've got like 2 versions of Zaxxon. There's a version that just says Zaxxon, and the other one that's Zaxxon 3. And the one that's Zaxxon 3 is in black and white, and the other version is in color. But I think that the intro screens are both the same. Let me see.
One's probably hacked.
One of them probably has been.
Well, it is hacked, so I can't comment on the hacked one.
Which one would be the hacked one? The color one?
If it's showing up in color on your CM8, then yeah, it's been hacked to inject color because.
Yeah, it was developed back in the Color 1 and 2 days, Color Computer 1 and 2, which did not have RGB out. Only had you have to hook it up to a US composite video monitor to get color.
Because let me see if I can show you guys what I see.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So if I run, I don't. You guys see this? Okay.
Yeah. See Zaxxon.
We got it.
Let me show you what it looks like.
Okay, so that's black and white.
Black and white one.
Yep, that's the original. That's the Coco 1 and 2 version.
On one, let me go ahead and try to show you. Reboot this guy here. Let's see if I can get to the one that says Zaxxon 3.
Yes, that's probably been patched to run on the Color Computer 3 most likely.
Yeah, it's a Zaxxon patch to work on the Coco 3. That's what it's referring to.
Okay. Now, Z89 is also Steve's follow-up that's designed for...
Yes, that one.
Yeah, that's been patched.
Yeah, that's been patched, and you actually, before you would run it, you would need to run some palette commands to change those colors to get them to look like... And there's a handful of palette commands you can do in BASIC to change the 4 color registers to match what the artifact colors look
because
like.
the colors are obviously a bit off here.
Extremely off, yeah. My eyes.
Stop. That green shadow.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to really see a bad version of Zaxxon, go back to your load screen.
All right.
Zaxxon?
Yeah.
Oh, Zaxxon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was horrible.
Zaxxon.
Oh, Zaxxon. Yeah.
I met him. I met the guy that did that at Coco Fest, and he actually said his was better than mine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what was he drinking? Because I'm only on my first drink, and
Well,
he's
colorblind.
No, to be truthful, this is true for almost any programmer. They're going to have a feeling about their child as being the better child than somebody else's child.
Right.
It's just human nature. So you have to accept
Jason's
that.
playing the artifact version. I just got Jason's up too.
Yeah. Oh, that one, the version, that one that's being displayed is definitely better coloring there. So how do you get that kind of coloring in Zaxxon?
It's artifact. You need to do it through composite. You won't see it on your
it won't
RGB
work on
monitor.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot better.
Yeah. Let me
Yeah,
say
this
hi
is the
to
way
some
it's
people in
supposed
the
to be.
live chat here. Jake Allen's out here. Hey, Jake Allen, how are you? Christopher David had joined us. Jake Allen says, I love Rampage. I have almost every game, but not sure about the movie. Michael Newman's out here. Michael Newman said, hi, all. Hey, Michael. Brian Joyce was here. Tom C. was here. Is maybe still here. Paul Thayer came by, too. He says, you guys are still at it. Coco forever. Randy Cornetta, who's from our Florida group. He came by and said hi. Hey guys out there in the live chat. Thanks for being here with us tonight. We're talking about whatever. Yeah. So did you get the Zaxxon game to actually start up there, David?
Yeah, I mean they all seem to be working fine. I just wasn't sure, and this tells me that now this is actually one of the advantages of using the Commodore 2002 RGB monitor with the CoCo is the fact the Commodore 2002 has two inputs. I can do an RGB input and a composite input, so I can just switch from one to the other. I don't think Sandy CM8 does that.
No, the Sandy CM8 does not support artifacting. Now, ironically, when you mentioned the word switch, this is a great segue because we've got a couple of products that take the CoCo 3 RGB, convert that to Scart, and then you can use a Scart to HDMI converter box. Now, Richard Lorbieski has a design that he's using, and part of what you need is a 5-volt signal that's provided by a USB port conveniently, since most people have access to USB. Hey, Javier, how are you?
Excellent.
Thank you for joining us. And,
thank you.
Hello, neighbor.
So here's Richard's cable. Here we go. Well, it's a work in progress, right? So we got the RGB side. He's working on the Scart side now.
Okay,
looking good. And then there's your feed for your composite. And your
Where do you
stereo
get
audio.
In the U.S.?
Where do you get what now?
Scart cables.
Richard? I think Richard might be muted still.
Okay, I'm sorry. What was the question?
Where do you get Scart cables in the U.S. or Scart ends or adapters?
The two sources that I've found them in the U.S. One is Console 5 LLC. They sell the plastic version, and then the ones that I'm getting, I'm actually buying them from Amazon. It's a complete cable, and then I cut the ends off, and then use those Scarts. Just like Jason is showing there.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Okay. Yeah, and it looks good. So Richard's got a design, and with Richard's design, when you want to switch to composite, and here's Steve Bjork's cable, you got to unplug the USB. Now, Jason, the Coco Man's taken that design and put a switch in it, and he calls that the switcheroo. And so now you can just flip a switch to turn composite on or off through your Scart to HDMI adapter.
Very cool.
Exactly. It's a little hard to see there, but it can switch to got the RGB picture there.
Okay, so there's your RGB where it's just black and white.
You got your RGB here that's black and white, and then we can switch over to composite mode.
And boom, there you go.
There's the color. Well, if I get the lighting right, but you get just an easy little switch. It's
okay.
So it's all in one unit here. I have the switch right in the Scart connector, and then it hooks to your CoCo 3 here, and then as far as 5 volts for the switching, that is supplied by your USB power source of choice.
Yeah, you can use any of the available USB ports in the back of your CoCo.
Very cool.
Any of them you want.
A lot of TVs have USB.
That will be available at CoCo Fest.
Be available at CoCo Fest, and Jim Brain will. You know what this reminds me of? When Supercuts first came out and says, "Hey, we're doing $10 haircuts," and then all the professional places put up signs saying, "We fix $10 haircuts." That's what Jim Brain's got to feel like right now. All these youngsters with their newfangled cables. You guys buy those cheap doodaddies and then bring them to me, and I'll fix them for you, kids.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, now.
Get a real job. Get off my lawn.
Now, have we...
shut up, you
Get a real job.
Now, have we just figured out which is the best Scart box to go with?
The one that I've been using is available on Amazon. It's about $35. That's probably the best one. It has the Scart. It also has an input and output for the HDMI. I'd have to do a link for Amazon. The And the reason I would recommend Amazon is sometimes these boxes don't work. It's just a very easy return.
Yeah.
Eventually, what I'm going to do is probably sell them, also, and just check them out. But again, it's just cheaper for someone to buy it through Amazon than for me to sell them, resell them.
Yeah. Well, I guess since this is a general topic, retro talk, I guess we can talk about other brands. And I know that Javier has actually done quite a bit of work with the Scart conversion boxes for the Apple II GS. So
Okay.
That's a whole that's been a whole point of discussion. So Javier, I know you were recommending also a Scart conversion box. Which is the one that you had the best luck with?
I was looking for it right now. Exactly where we were talking. I have it somewhere. I got a couple of boxes, but yeah, the Amazon one is a good one. Let me see if I can find it.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, because there was
this?
some variations. Some people were reporting variations in results, but the Apple II GS is one of those computers as well that has a dedicated RGB monitor that's becoming harder and harder to find. And there's been a number of video solutions for the Apple II GS over the years. Here it goes. Is that the same one that you use?
Yes, it's the same exact one.
Yeah. Yep.
Same one.
Yep. It's the Amazon special.
Some cross-brand solutions.
Those are like $30, $35, something like that, right?
Yeah, it's
Right.
really good.
Yeah.
What I do is I put it inside the monitors.
Uh-huh.
And I put everything inside the monitor. So actually, what you do is you just connect a normal cable, a normal video cable from the GS to the monitor, and it looks beautiful. It looks original, but still does everything good, and looks
So
really.
you're removing the CRTs and basically putting an LCD, so you got a lot of space in there.
Yep, a lot.
Yeah, we haven't seen a lot of that on the Coco side, but I know you're doing that on the Apple side now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jason just posted a link in the live chat there, too, to the Amazon box
Cool.
for anybody who needs one.
Hey, that sounds like a good project for Richard on the monitors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then
Javier's
when they
the
don't work,
man.
We can send them to Jim.
Yeah, so I met David. I met Florida David and Javier in February at the Florida Retro Club meeting, and these guys have a lot of systems and some cool stuff. So this is one of Javier's specials here.
Yeah, this is actually one. This is one of the Apple IIc monitors. I don't know if some of you are familiar with this very classic design.
Yeah.
Well, the beauty of this one is this was basically it was an empty case, and Javier actually installed an LCD screen in it. So you keep the exact same form factor as the original Apple II, Apple IIc, and then you've got that that VGA connector in the back.
Still have composite, it looks like there.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah.
Was that a 9-inch green screen or the color one?
That's
It's
the
a
green
9.7 inch screen.
Yeah.
Uh,
But now it's color, which is the amazing part because obviously those used to be green, right?
yeah,
But now
yeah,
when you
those
turn
from are green.
on- And then what we use with this, if you connect it to the Apple IIc, we use the A2 Heaven Apple II VGA connector, which is a very small device. You plug that into the video connector of your Apple IIc, and it will output a VGA signal out of the Apple IIc, and then you plug your Apple IIc into this one. And Javier is showing that A2 Heaven VGA solution, and you've got a beautiful VGA picture in color coming out of the Apple IIc.
That's neat. I have one of those monitors. I'd love to do that.
And then the whole setup looks completely original.
And you can change also to green, amber, black and white. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
How much does one of those monitors cost?
Like $80.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
No.
Yeah, no, for the Apple IIc that works well. Because the Apple IIc has a proprietary video connector in the back.
Right.
And that A2 Heaven VGA
That's for the
LCD,
LCD, actually.
the proprietary one.
Yeah, and when Javier was showing us at the club meeting, do you have that little tiny screen, Javier?
Yeah. Here it is.
Yeah, that was badass, man. That really was. Hey, Alan Huffman's here. Hey, Alan, how are you?
Hey, you got your Coco 3 yet?
Yeah, look at that one. That what was that screen called when Apple made it?
This is an LCD screen. It was black and white LCD. It was really bad. You couldn't see anything with this.
It's vertically compressed. It's half the height. It's horrible. Yeah. I had one at one point with an Apple IIc. Ugh.
What was the name of it, of that monitor or that display?
Apple IIc LCD screen or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a rich man, and that was a rich man's screen though. Those things were expensive as hell, and they still are. But
they still are.
Yeah.
And they look horrible.
A beautiful LCD conversion of that full color as well on it.
Yeah, and it actually gets its power from that video output port on the back of the 2C, right?
Now,
if you watch the movie 2010, you can see one.
The poor man version is this. I don't know if you guys know about this little device. They've become really hard to find.
The owl.
They're known as the night owl. It's actually like really a CCTV solution, and this little screen here. A lot of us have repainted them in white to match the Apple IIc collection, because otherwise they come in black. So a lot of us have done a bit of a paint job on them. But the beautiful thing about this little cheapo one here, how much did that sell for, Javier? It was about $100, right?
Yeah, it was less than that. It was like $40.
Oh, was it really? Yeah.
I think the last one I saw on eBay was around 40.
Yeah, but they went like crazy. And this thing that's beautiful about this one, it's a pretty good quality. You connect to it via composite as well. It's a pretty good quality. It's color, and you can actually power this screen via the proprietary video connector of the Apple IIc. So you can manufacture your own connector, grab the composite signal, grab the power, and power the screen straight from the Apple IIc with it, so that you don't have a mess of cables or external. It's actually a good solution, much cheaper, but hard to find now for some reason.
Hey, Javier.
I think they stopped producing it.
Yeah.
Is that a Prairie Pack battery pack?
Yep.
I had one of those at one time too. They're great.
Yeah, here it is. I was gonna use it, but it's not charged.
Yeah, lead acid battery.
Yep. I actually changed the batteries for brand new ones. I went to Batteries Plus.
Yeah.
And actually in Pembroke Pines, next to your house, David. So I changed it and it's working, but I didn't charge it. I just forgot.
The original Apple IIcs had external power supply, so you could take that battery pack, plug it in, and they had an oversized case. And I had the oversized case with the 2C and the flat screen and that battery pack, and you can completely take it somewhere and play with it.
Yeah. It made it like a freaking Apple laptop, basically.
It was an Apple laptop portable, 1986, totally rocked. I took it out to a park and was using it. It was great.
Yeah. I have a 2C Plus, so I'm not so lucky.
Yeah, 2C Plus has internal power supply, so you'd have to do some other mucking around, but hard hat Mac.
Yeah, that display looks pretty good there, Javier.
Yeah, hold on.
Very sweet.
I just changed it.
Okay, so you can change it to 4x3, where it's just a smaller square instead of being all stretched out.
Yep.
Or they all stretch out, but there it is. Look.
For word processing, it'd be perfectly fine. Don't mind having an aspect ratio.
I took it pretty fast right now. It's got a SIP chip, a rocket chip, so it's accelerated.
Ah.
So that's Hard Hat Mac. I don't know if they ever had that for the Coco. I haven't seen it. Commodore and Apple. It's a arcade game type thing.
Yeah, it's a Donkey clone. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a Coco project, but it could be.
There's actually beams that you can put into place. You can place them in the floors and then rivet them in. So it's kind of like Donkey Kong, but slightly different gameplay.
Yeah, I love this game.
Yeah, that looks really good.
Click, click, click.
And this screen is actually usable with this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of acceleration do you get with that rocket ship? How many megahertz?
5 megahertz. Let me put a normal. So I got to restart, and just hold on escape, and then it will go at normal speed. 1
megahertz. 1 megahertz. Yay!
Was that the speed of the original Apple II? See?
Right. Yeah. Yep. 1023 actually. 1023 1023K.
You guys know, but you know, I don't know what was there an accelerator market in Cocos or not?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was just the
Not
6309, or there was there was a 4 megahertz hack that somebody came up with, but it's not like the rocket chip or something like that.
Yeah, zip chip or rocket chip or the warp.
Well,
transwarps.
I hate to say it, with the 6809, we really didn't need that much acceleration because the 6502 just can't keep up with the 6809.
Yeah. There was there has been a lot of work in the Apple community regarding accelerators. You know, on the 2GS, there's the whole Transwarp GS that cranked it up quite a bit, and you can even soup them up even further to reach 13, 16, 17 megahertz speed on the 2GS. And then, Javier, what's the Plamin's solutions called again for the Apple IIe?
It's called
what's that called? Fast chip.
Fast chip.
Right. And fast chip, you can reach, I think it's 16.6 megahertz on the Apple
16 megahertz,
yeah. Well, see, that's the thing is the Apple eventually with the 65816 to try not only increase the speed but also increase the amount of memory you could handle and other issues that the 6502 was just generally having.
Yeah.
I mean, every time you wanted to do any sort of index processing, you still had to grab 16 bits address space from direct page, and that slows you down quite a bit. Where the 6809 had 4 16-bit registers it could use to point to anywhere in memory.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, for example, the Amiga market obviously saw quite a bit of accelerators, but I don't recall the Commodore market having any accelerators.
Oh, they did. Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
they did.
Yep.
Super CPU. Yeah, they had a 65816 Super CPU that ran at, was it 16?
Nope, 20.
Well,
which model of the Commodores did they offer that?
It was on the 128 and the 64.
Oh wow! I was never even heard of those.
Yep. I've got a couple of them here.
And I know the on the Apple IIc Plus, that was based on the zip chip design, and a lot of people hacked that with a faster CPU and faster RAM chips for the cache. So, and then they just put in a faster clock on that, and they were running them 8 megahertz or higher.
Yeah.
But
the default Apple IIc Pluses were 4 megahertz.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were like a basic zip chip.
Yep. Actually, they say they copied from the zip chip the same technology. They just
they licensed it. Yeah, they licensed it.
Yeah. So.
Now, what's fascinating to me, and I don't know if that's by design or not, but it seems that a lot of those enhancements, that are even coming out today, some of the newly engineered, add-ons for vintage computers, seems to remain somewhat proportional to the price of the original machines. Like, for example, when I got into Coco 3 and I looked at the Coco SDC, I was like, man, that's very reasonably priced. While in the Apple II world, if you want to have, a solution like that, for example, there's something known as the CFFA 3000 or those devices. They're extremely expensive, like several $100s.
Right.
And it seems that, I don't know if it's by design, but things seems to be remaining somewhat proportional.
I think I paid $100. I think I only paid $150 for my CFFA. It's just that people buy 5 of them and they use one and put the rest on eBay.
That's
yeah. I bought 2 and I still have both of mine from run number 3. They are a fantastic device, but Coco SDC just as good, a whole lot cheaper.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Buy 5 of them and they use one and put the rest on eBay.
Somebody's doing a sound loop now. Who's got their speakers on? I just heard the sound echo back there. I'm not even sure how. Yeah, I'm not even sure how long we've been going, but I'm gonna take a quick break, and I'm gonna run a couple commercials, give us all a chance to take a bio break and a potty break for those here on the panel and those watching. So you're watching a special episode of CoCoTALK After Dark. This is General Retro Talk, where we're gonna talk about just about anything. But for those who are not familiar with our show that we do every Saturday, CoCoTALK appears live on YouTube. Our website is called CoCoTALK.live, and we talk about the Tandy color computer. But we've got a mixed bag of people here with a lot of different interests and systems that they own and are fans of. And those of you who are watching at home, we appreciate you being here. So we're going to take a break, and we'll be back in about a minute and a half. Thank you all, and we'll see you in a little bit. So let's hear a little bit of CoCoTALK After Dark theme music as put together by our good friend Alan Huffman.
CoCoTALK After Dark.
CoCoTALK After Dark.
CoCoTALK After Dark.
Hey, have you got your Coco 3 yet? Hi, this is Rick Adams, author of Temple of Ram and Shanghai, and you've tuned into CoCoTALK, the nation's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy color computer.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me. It's Original Gamer CoCoTALK. You know, gameplay. To get your copy of a Gameplay Goodness color computer gaming DVD today, head on over to 8bit256.com. There you will find several DVDs featuring color computer gameplay videos by the Original Gamer CoCoTALK. So to get your very own copy of a Gameplay Goodness color computer gaming DVD, head on over to the Retro Swag Shop at 8bit256.com and tell them the Original Gamer CoCoTALK sent you.
Hi, I'm Mike Rowan, and you're watching the Original Gamer, CoCoTALK. And when you're done watching, come over and listen to the Coco Crew podcast.
Hi, this is John Linville.
And Neil Blanchard.
We are the Coco Crew. I hope you're enjoying watching CoCoTALK play video games, especially the Coco games. And when you're done with that, check out our podcast at CocoCrew.org.
What's going on, everybody? Original Gamer CoCoTALK here, and if you're a fan of vintage computing and retro gaming, then you're going to love our Retro Swag Shop at 8bit256.com. There you will find custom designs by Instagram artist Joel M. Adams. You can get I'm a Coconut, CoCoTALK, and other cool video game images on a t-shirt, coffee mug, or mouse pad. So if you love retro, then head on over to the Retro Swag Shop at 8bit256.com today. Tell them the Original Gamer CoCoTALK sent you.
Direct to DVD.
Straight to YouTube. Jim Gary just said, hey, Jim Gary. And Brian Joyce says, hey, my movie. Yes, it will be out in July. So while we're sitting here talking about Ready Player One and Tomb Raider, let's not forget about Floppy Life, the David Ladd story, the runaway blockbuster of 2018. What I do want to just show you guys real quick for just a second, because you did see the shameful plug for the merchandise. And what I want to point out here is we've got some new designs on the swag shop, one of them being the CoCoTALK AfterDARK logo, which Mark Overholzer is wearing for us right now. You can't see it because I'm on full screen, but we'll switch back to Mark in a second. But yeah, the new CoCoTALK AfterDARK logo is available. And I got a couple other designs that are now available too. These are all done by Joel Adams, son of Rick Adams, who gave us, what did Rick give us? He gave us Temple of Rom, he gave us Shanghai, he's given us now Bomb Threat. So cool designs. And what we also have right now is a 15% off. So all these designs you can get on a t-shirt, coffee mug, or a mouse pad. And if you use promo code 15FORYOU, F-O-R-Y-O-U, you will get 15% off your entire order through April 10th. So if you like retro swag, you might like that. So Jim Gary's here. Hey, Jim Gary, how are you? Good to see you. And we're back with more retro talk with our distinguished panel of retro dudes. And we were talking about Apple stuff and accelerators before the break. Hey, speaking of retro dude, John Strong is here. Hey, John, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Or
Howdy.
not.
Mute. Hey, I had to get the mute off.
Hey, David in Miami or South Florida. This is John Strong, who provided the case for you for your Coco SDC.
John, how are you? And my Coco Flash. I just ordered one yesterday.
Ah, there you go. Well, I got to say, Florida.
Well, it just printed it.
Yeah. Florida David's pretty spoiled. He just got his first Coco 3. He also got a new inbox CM8 to go with his first ever Coco 3. And he's on a call with all of the key people in the Coco community from the past to the present. And so if anybody, look at that. There's your Coco 3 in the box. Look at you son of a bitch. And look at that CM8 right there, too. We all hate you right now. So
I don't even have a CM8 box.
Look at that. That's in great shape. So how's it feel to get your first Coco and be surrounded by the entire Coco community? Coco static, he says. Cool stuff. So we got a couple Apple guys here. Mark O, our own Mark Overholzer's an Apple guy too. He's got his Apple IIe in the background there with his. That's still the CRT color monitor there, right, Mark? And Mark, show us that CoCoTALK After Dark shirt again.
Oh, yeah, that's it's called the Apple Color Monitor 2E. So it's really nice, high resolution. And here's my CoCoTALK.
Look at that. Look how good that shirt looks.
That's cool.
Get 15% off today.
Act now.
Act now while supplies last. Operators are standing by.
Promo code warranty returns.
Oh, dear God.
If you act now, you can receive an additional shirt at regular price.
Oh, wait,
Good
there's
times.
more.
It's the buy one, get one sale.
Buy one, you get one. You buy two, you get two.
There you go.
Although you can save 15% until when, Stevie?
April 10th if you act now.
There you go. You can save 15%.
There you go. And enough of that. All right, so what else are we going to talk about tonight, dudes? Did we make somebody sad? We're getting some emojis going across the room here. This is a telethon, too, by the way. So we have 7 likes right now. We have 1 love. We have 1 haha. We don't have any sads. As long as we don't get any sads and we don't get any angries, Timmy will get his wheelchair. So this is a March of Dimes telethon that we are trying to raise money for a little handicapped kid named Timmy. Timmy! So, so far we're doing good. Timmy, it's looking good.
Oh, let me fix that.
You son of a bitch. Timmy, you're screwed. You're going to be crawling for life. So. Good times. Look at that. Look at the little. Oh, there's a cat. A cat. How did we get a cat on the screen? There's a cat emoji just popped up or something. I don't know what the hell's going on here. And see little faces are flying by on the Facebook page. don't know what's going on. There was this. Oh, it shows the face of who's clicking it. I see what's going on there. Some shenanigans are going on here. Good times. So, what else is going on? What's on our minds? What do we want to talk about, guys?
No, this is David. I just have a quick question now, because I think a lot of the guys here initially are from kind of the Coco community. Is there a lot of kind of cross-brand enthusiasts as well, or are people, some of you exclusively Coco or Coco 3?
You're muted, Steve Bjork.
There are some of us who are multi-platform here. But then there's Steve Bjork, who thinks the 68099 is God's gift to CPUs.
Well, considering you had the 68502 to work with, yeah, it definitely is.
Oh, what a 69809 fanboy.
So Steve, you're Coco then?
No. I've done a lot of systems, and it's whatever's handy. But the thing is, you always love your first child the most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the Coco wasn't my first child. I worked on systems before that. But it was the first time I had a company really design a microprocessor really for the programmer. You know, it's like, hey, we'll throw something together and hopefully people will want to use it. You could really tell that the engineers back at Motorola, when they designed the 68000 and the 6809, they were thinking about the guys that had to do, you know, basically go off to war in the trenches and really use that processor. And you know, it's kind of like there was no one way to do something. There was different ways. It was whatever way you wanted to, that was the best. Also, it wasn't like the Intel processors where, depending on what instruction, you would use what a particular type of addressing mode or a particular set of registers or other things. It's like English. There's always exceptions to the rules, where I would say the 6809 was more like the Romance languages.
The 6809 was the first 8-bit processor that really supported high-level languages too, compilers.
Yeah.
That was one of the best things about it.
Okay,
and it also has the smallest code.
Yeah. If you look at the 6502, you have one index register, and it's limited to a certain amount of RAM, 256 bytes, depending on the version. And you had two index registers. But my point was, not only did you have a stack register that could access the entire RAM space, you had a second user stack that could access the entire RAM space. So pushing stuff on the user stack wouldn't affect the system stack. Really was nice for compilers too.
And to do that on the 6502, you have to manage a pointer off of the direct page, and that is the slowest instruction to load or store that of all the 6502 instructions.
Mm-hmm.
A couple months ago on Coco Crew, they interviewed a guy by the name of Brian Moriarty who worked for Infocom. And he was really praising the 6809. He said, you know, a typical 8-bit interpreter took about 9K for an Infocom game. He was able to squeeze down that same interpreter to about 5K with 6809. It was just that much tighter. That's impressive.
Yeah.
See, the other thing too is they were developing the 6809 almost simultaneously with the 68000. See, the 68000 is supposed to be your power processor, get the work done and everything else. The 6809 was supposed to be that lower operating level chip to handle I/O functions and grunt work and do it efficiently. Mostly 8-bit, but it had 16-bit capability too. So it was kind of like, if you took code and put it in the 68,000, it could do a lot of great things, but it was bigger, heavier code. 6809, very lean.
Yeah, and a 2 megahertz 6809 is much closer to the speed of an 8 megahertz 68,000 than you would expect. It is the 68,000, since it had larger instructions and you were dealing with 16 bits and stuff more often, it tended to take a lot longer to execute the code, and it wasn't. It took quite a few clock cycles for its instructions. It was a 32-bit instruction set running on a 16-bit ALU and on a 16-bit bus. So the 6809 performs quite well.
Yeah. Now, one thing that happened too is, talk about accelerators and like that. Hitachi came out with the 6309, which is a work-alike 6809 with improvements, more registers, a way to remove a clock cycle from most instructions, and it had some built-in commands to do memory transfers and like that. And there is, like in the case of the Nitrous 09 project, which is OS 9 and operating system, it has a much more efficient operation, tighter code, and I think what they're getting is 25% improvement.
Yeah,
or is it greater than
instruction
that?
prefetch alone, the instruction prefetch alone is good for over 20% speed up.
Yeah, so basically, in a bottom line in it, replacing your 6809 with a 6309 is definitely one of your accelerators you might want to think about for a CoCo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it had a compatibility mode so that it could run identical to the 6809. Well, as far as timing goes, and so you maintain compatibility with all your cassette and serial I/O and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't break existing code.
Yeah,
exactly.
Of course, if Curtis was here, of course, I know David could talk about it. They do sing the praises of the 6309 for Nitrous 09.
Yeah, no. The Hitachi also came out with the 6303, which was a faster version of the 6803. It had the instruction prefetch and a few new instructions. That's the processor that's in the MC10, and they also had the 64180, which is a faster version of the Z80, a derivative of the Z80, and that added. They had the Z80 is a 4-bit ALU, and they put a larger ALU in it. I can't remember if it was 8 or 16-bit, and they put an instruction prefetch on it and a multiply instruction, and that is a 6 megahertz chip is supposed to be the same speed as an 8 megahertz Z80. Hitachi was quite the innovator at the time.
Well, the thing too is that a lot of the game systems were using these hybrid processors. Like the Game Boy had a 8080 processor in there that some of the unused instructions were more like Z80.
Yeah, they added indexing off of some of the registers that you don't index off of on the Z80.
Yeah, it was really a weird type of processor, and I remember coding for the Game Boy, and it's like I just can't wrap my head around this one because I want to slip into either 88 or Z80 when I'm looking at this instruction set. At least Sega used a pure Z80 and pure 68000 in the Genesis.
Well, that was a little tougher to clone.
Yeah.
Well,
when it comes to code size, if you compare the different CPUs, I ported some code that prints in 64 columns of text on a 256 by 192 screen, and the 6502 is by far the largest, then the Z80, then the 6803, and then the 6809. And you're talking more than a 30% improvement between the 6809 and the 6502. And the Z80 code, even though it has a lot of registers, you have to get them in the right order and stuff. I spent more time optimizing the Z80 code than anything else.
Jim Gary just posted a YouTube video of an MC10 game that's running on a 6309 or whatever it's called for the MC10, and I'm going to show that, and we'll get back to this discussion. And I think we what you guys are talking about now and how great this chip is a great discussion, and we can continue that. But I want to make sure I understood your original question too, Florida David. You're basically wanting to know, besides the Coco, what other systems do we own or use or are fluent with, and things like that too. And we'll get onto that discussion too. But how about we do this real quick? Let's take a look at Jim Gary's video, because you know, no discussion of the MC10 is complete without showing a Jim Gary video here. So let's see what this is like.
Yeah.
You're at the Heron Point Convention Center, huh? It's Coco Fest. The convention has been taken over by retro bright needing Cocos. You must swap out 10 yelling. This almost sounds like Marty's Nightmare for a second here. Okay. I like his song choice here. Now, is this the speeded up version of it?
Don't think so.
No. I can't see the video, but it's not set up if it's the one.
No, this is not the speed up version here, so. Okay, so that's him going through the maze. So I'm just wondering, does this get to... So what are we looking at here? Is this a sped up version of the video?
That's
MC
the
Chase.
standard speed.
Okay, but he says MC6803. Okay. Okay, so this is not sped up. Alrighty then.
Yeah, 6803 is the standard CPU on the MC10.
6803. Okay, it's the 6303. Is that the one?
The 6303 is the faster version. And unlike the 6309, it does not have an emulation mode that runs at normal 6803 speed. It has native mode all the time.
Okay.
So
does it have a train running by it at all?
Oh, yeah. No, it doesn't, but I do.
So I'll try to answer your question, Florida David. So the only system I owned back in the day was a Coco, and that's the only one I kind of know how to use. Now, because I'm in the hobby, I am trying to collect other things. So I'll just show you the few of the systems I have, and honestly, I haven't turned any of these on yet, but I'll just kind of show you what I got. Some of these I got from Michael Brandt, who some of you guys met in Central Florida.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But I have an Atari 800 XL, which
There you go.
I've never used yet. I don't have the power cord for it, and I'm not sure what type of display output I need yet. But I've got one of these. I've always wanted to play with an Atari 8-bit and play some of the games. So I've got one, and this is on my to-do list, is to get this thing fired up and using it. So that's one of my systems.
I've got one of those too in storage.
I have a 520 ST that I also got from Michael Brandt. Never used it. Have no idea how to use it or what to do with it. But it's got some things. So I need a power cord and some type of display cord, and then I need to figure out what type of multi-cart or SD emulator or whatever, whatever magic cartridge I need for this thing, because I'm not going to start buying floppies and cartridges for all these systems, kind of like what you're not doing with your Coco, right? So,
Right.
And then I also got a TI 9948 in the box, and I've got a few accessories for this. I have a handful of cartridges and some joysticks and stuff, and one of these days I'm going to turn this thing on and see what it looks like. I haven't even looked at this one.
That was my first doorstop computer.
So
used it for about 3 months that way at Datasoft until we had to send it back.
Yeah. So I do have some other wish list the ones. So I would like to have a working Commodore 64 or possibly 128. I'm not sure if I want an Amiga. I don't have any love for the Amiga. I know it's an amazing system, but I never owned one, so it would be like, yeah, if I came across one, okay. And then an Apple II, and that's why I started picking your guys' brains about, Apple IIs, and if you're only going to get one Apple II, what's the best one to get? And I think the general consensus is if you can get it, get the 2GS. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like the Coco 3 because it does all the new cool stuff and it's still backwards compatible. And if you couldn't get a 2GS, then maybe the next best one might be a 2C Plus because it's kind of compact and it's got everything else. Or I don't know. I'll be leaning on you guys when I get ready to purchase my Apple.
Yeah, it depends who you ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people will say the 2E or 2E Platinum.
2E, but they're bigger and bulkier. And then at least with the 2C, you've got a built-in floppy already there. You've already got all the RAM you need.
2GS has got the RGB, so it's easy to get a SCART cable, and there you go.
It worked well with that. Yeah, I mean, for me, in the Apple, the quintessential Apple II was. I really loved the Apple IIe. I mean, for me, that's it's old standard. It's one of those classic looks, almost like the Porsche design. Or the Beetle.
It's what people got introduced to through the schools usually.
Yeah, it looked identical to the 2 Plus, and did pretty much all the same software. So yeah, it's a classic look.
The classic look, classic design. It's really special. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes through and does the same thing when it boots up the floppies. It goes to track 0 and then some. Yeah. So you hear that beautiful sound.
I mean, it's funny because when I got into the Apple II, the retro Apple IIs, the Apple II GS was the last one I bought. And I didn't think I wanted it for a very long time. And I bought it mostly for kind of completeness of the collection more than anything else. And strangely enough, that's the one I kept on my desk the longest. Just fascinating, you could mimic the old Apple IIe, or you could really leverage the Apple II GS capabilities. It's a very expendable machine, very versatile. And that was really amazing. I kept using it more and more for over several months on my desk, kind of the prime real estate of my desk, of my limited desk space. And it's a really cool machine. But it didn't have that, retro look that I wanted in the Apple II, like the Apple IIe or an Apple II Plus, for example, or just the good old Apple II. But nice machine.
Right. In the live chat, Michael Newman says, I had a friend who had a 520 ST. Dan Shepard, hey Dan, how are you? Says, I had an Apple IIc. He said, I also had the Coleco Atom. Anybody remember the Coleco Atom?
Oh, that was a disaster.
I tried to buy 2 of those for my collection, and neither one of them worked.
Wow.
The power supplies are notorious for going bad, and the
but the power supplies are in the printer. That's the thing. They were trying to save money every which way they could. So if you didn't have the printer, you couldn't use the machine. And if the printer failed, you could use it. Go ahead.
And they use those RAM chips that are sensitive they have multiple voltage, and they're very sensitive to voltage levels. And so when your power supply goes, so does your video RAM.
Wow.
Yeah.
So just a bad design, huh?
Does anybody have an Amstrad?
What was the question? An Amstrad?
Amstrad. Everybody has that? The good old Amstrad.
Probably the only one that I didn't have in my collection at one point.
Yeah, those are kind of funny-looking computers. Also with the built-in tip decks, very colorful. Pink. Green keys and blue keys, and
wow,
they were pretty big.
They were kind of neat.
Yeah. And the Coleco Atom, you could have got it one of 2 ways. You could have bought the whole computer system in a box that was white, right? And what was neat about it was they were selling that as a complete system, right? Because I've actually got a ColecoVision on the shelf too, and on the back of the box they talk about the Atom. If you bought the whole ColecoVision or the whole Atom system, you got a computer, you got a printer, you got the cassette drive, and I think it was already backwards compatible or fully compatible with the ColecoVision game system. And I believe that whole system, if you bought it new retail, sold for about $600. And when you think about it, we could have spent easily that much on a Coco. Definitely more than that on an Apple or an Atari system. But it was a Z80-based system. I think it had 32K of RAM and 16 color graphics, TI, sprite chips, sound chips, a dot matrix printer, and a cassette tape. There was value there. They were trying to get in the market. They were trying to go.
It was a cassette drive, not a cassette
drive. Cassette drive, yeah.
Tape drive, yeah.
Yes. So if you the design challenges aside, what they were trying to create was a complete computer system in a box. Plug it into your TV, all your peripherals are here, and you can play games too. So that's very commendable. ColecoVision was very aggressive trying to get in, you know.
Actually, no, they were trying to survive, because what was happening at the time was, in America, nobody was buying game systems. They were buying computers. Coleco was selling a game system, and they had to convert it into a computer to stay in the stores, because the stores weren't touching video games because of the crash.
Right.
Yeah.
And at one time, they were even offering a scholarship when you bought one of their systems. It was like a $500 scholarship.
Yeah, and I wonder how many people actually got to collect on that.
It was also an expansion module for the ColecoVision. So if you had the ColecoVision, you could get the Atom expansion module number 3 to convert and upgrade your ColecoVision to become the Atom computer.
Right. See, the Atom has this weird thing where their card slots are not the same from one to the next. So a certain card goes in a certain slot, and somebody came up with a compact flash interface for it, and you couldn't put the ROM on the same card. You had to put it on a printer card that fit in a different slot. Wow. And one of the things that I did for the ColecoVision group was I converted from the ROM chip driver to a driver that ran off of a multi-card. And it works pretty well when you boot it off of an IDE, but the tape drives aren't the most reliable.
Yeah.
I had a family member that bought the Coleco Atom before they bought a Commodore 64, and they had just all kinds of problems with the tape drives, and the printer was nice. It was a daisy wheel, so it was kind of slow.
Daisy wheel.
Yeah, it was like 15 characters a second.
It was a loud daisy wheel.
Daisy wheel, but it looked good. It printed out nice. I mean,
opposed to the hundreds of quiet ones that were out there.
It was loud even for a daisy wheel.
Yeah.
At the time there weren't these Multipass dot matrix printers that with more pins. So a daisy wheel.
Pins, yeah.
It booted up to, if you didn't have a cartridge in it or anything, you could boot directly up to its word processor, and you could have it in 2 modes where you would type it and it would go into memory and you could edit it, or you could treat it just like a typewriter.
Oh wow.
Yep.
And what you typed immediately went to the daisy wheel.
Yeah.
So
as I said, they were trying to make a real computer that kids could do their homework on and turn it in, and they could grow with it. It was really a matter of survival for them. And there was such a fiasco that the first 2,000 machines were recalled.
Yeah, the instructions specifically told you to put the tape in the cartridge, the tape drive, and turn on the power. But that would cause a power surge that would erase the tape.
Right.
So if they had even just had the direction, so you turn on the power, then stick in the tape and hit reset, that would have saved them a lot of trouble. A friend of mine got one. He was so excited. He stuck in the basic cartridge, turned it on, it erased the basic cartridge, it went back to the store.
Right.
Oh, wow.
But no, they were physically recalled, just like you recall a car with bad brakes. They were because the power supplies were overheating. the first 2,000 of them or something, or it could even been more. It was a fiasco. Effectively, Toys R Us sent all of them back. They wouldn't deal with it. And when they were trying to get their money back, Coleco says, well, we'll give it to you merchandise. They said, no, we want our cash back. And there was a long battle. Yeah, it was a long battle.
So that's why Toys R Us is filing for bankruptcy now?
Beginning of the end.
Yeah, it took 30 years, but...
The basic for the Coleco was interesting, too. It was a direct copy, pretty much, of AppleSoft. You would start your tape by typing PR number 6, which is the typical slot number on the Apple to boot, and it used all the same high-res graphic commands, except it's based on a Z80 processor. So if you got a basic program for the Apple, but it had data statements, it had machine language, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, and it also had the same graphics chip as the TI-99. So you had different resolution and stuff, and the basic was close enough you could port stuff easy enough, but with a different resolution you had to squeeze it down to the 256 by 192 screen.
Yep.
Yeah, it had a lot of good things, but it was just thrown out the door way too fast.
Wow.
It also had a 6803 processor, just like the MC10, but for every device. Your printer, the main computer had one, the keyboard had one, each tape drive had one. That was their AtomNet bus was driven by the built-in serial port on the 6803.
Wow. That's an interesting
But yet it was still slow as molasses.
Yeah, it was 50-something K baud. I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I found that the more they overticked the I/O hardware with CPUs and other things, the slower it got. Look how slow the Atari was with their daisy chain bus.
Well, it was a slower baud rate too.
Yeah, but still. And then I saw the Japanese do the same thing, and it was just like, in the case of the CoCo, we have such simple hardware, but yet our floppy drives are hundreds of times faster.
Yeah, well, and in Commodore, they introduced a parallel drive for the Plus 4, and it was way faster than the serial, but nobody picked it up and carried it because they were already carrying the serial drives, and it also supported those.
Yeah. I remember Datasoft, they gave me an incredible bonus because I took the time it took to make a floppy disk from it was like 13 minutes on the Atari down to 15 seconds by using a TRS-80 Model 1 to make the same frickin' disk. And because what they would do is they'd have about 30 machines set up, and the guy would just walk through putting the floppies in and then sit down, wait a little bit, and then he would start over again. And this one machine was outperforming that entire assembly line in producing the discs.
Wow. Cool stuff. Chris Shilliday, are you here? I see his little picture here. But yeah, we're getting a lot of Florida representation in here today. That's nice.
Yeah, I went to our site and told them a little bit about your retro talk this evening. So I'd like to.
Hello.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Do you have my video by chance?
No, not yet. I just have a little blue square.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt there.
Not a problem.
As long as you don't ask what we've been talking about for the last 2 hours.
Oh, I've been watching.
What's tonight's topic?
This looks good here, David.
So I'm wondering, do you guys consider those TRS Model 4s or Model 3s kind of the grandfathers of the CoCo? Any link of is that on the same family tree, or what are we talking about here?
No, they're not even close.
It's not even a branch off. It's one of our roots that went off a long ways and then sprouted up a weed. That's what
It came from the Model 1 family.
Yeah.
Model 1, Model 2.
Yeah.
they're based on the Z80. There's a lot of similarities in the basic, but beyond that, no.
Yeah.
Well, technology-wise, there is no DNA that is shared,
Right,
but
right.
but the parent corporation in the store we got it from. If you think of Radio Shack as the parents, then yeah, we are all cousins and uncles and stepbrothers to each other.
Yeah.
In that respect, but as far as having the same DNA, there is no shared DNA between these systems.
Well, the one thing I will say that is shared, they did keep the overall I/O hardware simple, and that made the I/O faster.
And also some of the original CoCo peripherals were basically TRS-80 peripherals, so the serial cables and the cassette players and things like that. Those were and modems and stuff. Those were printers. So in that respect, early color computer peripherals were basically just TRS-80 Model 1 peripherals that worked on a CoCo. And that's why the original CoCo was silver too. They shared the same color, so your cassette tape would match either system.
Yeah.
And if you had, if you had the CoCo disk controller, you could use a lot of the same
the
aftermarket floppy drives. Yeah, I still wish I could get a Percom disk drive for mine.
Yeah. So yeah, we consider them. I consider it family. The TRS-80 Model 1 was the first computer I saw as a kid when I hung out at my local Radio Shack, and that got me interested in computers. And by the time I could afford one, the color computer was available and became a more obvious choice. It's also something I would like to have. There's a lot of systems I would like to have, but I am confined. My wife tolerates this insanity, but everything I have to fit has to fit in this 10 by 12 room that I'm in. So I've got limited space. And it's already hot as shit in here right now with the lights on and the 3 PC monitors I've got wrapped around me and everything else. I feel like I'm in a sauna right now.
And it's only April in Florida.
It is winter, man.
You could always move to the garage.
It is.
Well, the thing is, his room will get cooler once he's allowed to turn on the air conditioning.
What I do have more of, and what I'm a bigger fan of than just all the computers, is the game consoles. I've got a ton of game consoles. I've got Atari consoles and Sega and Nintendo, and I've got a ColecoVision. So I now try to collect all the ones I had or wanted. And the game consoles are a little bit cheaper, I think, than the vintage computers are in many respects. I've gotten, I can Atari 72 or 7800? I can't remember. But
78.
Yeah, the 7800 Atari. You can get
there's a 5200 and a 7800.
Yeah, the 7800 is fully backwards compatible with the 2600, and you can get a system with a stack of games for about $100. Yeah, and so that was my first Atari. Was I bought on eBay a 7800, and I've got a huge box of Atari 8-bit cartridges and the 7800 cartridges.
There you go.
Yeah, so I got a lot of those. I've got the Sega Saturn. I want to get a Genesis again. A Genesis was the console I had, and that's on my list too, is to get a Sega Genesis with all the peripherals. Coco Man got one there.
You're not going to get a 32X, are you?
No, I have no love for that. So I wouldn't.
Yeah.
No, but I do want to get the original Gen 1 Genesis with the Sega CD. That was the setup that I had.
We all know you want a Jaguar.
I never had one.
He wants to play Night Trap again.
I never played
Oh,
that one.
there you go.
He just wants to get past level 1. That's what he really wants to do.
Yes. So what about the rest of you guys? What other systems you guys have or want?
Believe it or not, I've got an Atari 5200 original when it actually came out in the stores. I still have it, and I will tell you, it had the god-awfulest worst joysticks.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You try and press a button on those games, they don't press.
No.
You have to take them apart and clean them. And then you use it for 10 minutes, and you got to take it apart and clean them again.
Infamously awful.
Yes.
Yeah. The only thing that compares to that is the ColecoVision. I have an Intellivision too. Yeah, Dan Shepard's asking about the Intellivision. I recently picked up one of those too. I've got the Intellivision, but I want to get a multi-cart for it. So I'm not even going to turn it on. Or I want to make sure it works. But then, I want to get the multi-cart for the Intellivision.
There was a lot of good games for that Intellivision.
Yeah. And now what's going on here? What game is being run here by David Ladd? Is that that's the sequel to Downland, whatever it was called, Cave Walker or something like that?
Well, this is Cave Walker, yes.
Cave Walker, yeah. Now, what are you running this on? Because the colors look a little...
It's a Coco 3.
Is it Coco 3?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what the colors are supposed to look like? Those blues? I almost thought this was
it's
VCC.
patched, isn't it?
No, this is actually a Coco 3.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
but
never
the
played
game
that
is
game.
patched for the Coco 3, isn't it?
No, actually, Cave Walker was designed to work on either the Coco 1, 2, or 3, depending on if you used it on OS 9 level 2, then it would give you the RGB or composite options. And you'll see here, it's definitely designed for the Coco 3 because every stage it changes colors.
The palettes changed. I was going to say, yeah, the colors were looking funky there. Now, does he take falling damage?
Oh, yes.
But he just hit his spring, yeah.
Okay, there you go. That's pretty cool.
That's cool.
No, you know, being new to the Tandy world, one thing that I think that the Coco 3 shares in its DNA with some of the TRS-80 earlier models is what I would call like OS confusion. You know, speaking about that, like I'm hearing like OS 9, then there are like all those DOSes you could run on the Coco. This just the same way with the model, 3 and 4. There's like, Tris DOS and LS DOS and new DOS, and what's up with Tandy and the DOSes? It's amazing.
The TRS-80, Tandy did come out with the DOS, but everybody kept coming out with better versions and their own creations. They knew they could make money doing it. So that's why there's so many different ones out there. In the case of the Coco, Tandy actually had two environments, something called Disk Color Extended Basic, and you type in run star or run whatever it is, and it would go through and start up the game. Then they decided to try and create a unified OS called OS 9, and that's where that comes in. But in the case of the Disk Color Extended Basic, a lot of people decided to improve it with their own ROMs, and they sold them. They made money.
Created quite a bit of confusion, though. I mean, I getting into it, as a newbie, it's a little overwhelming. I mean, you see so much variety. You're like, okay, which one should I use? Which one used to be the default one? But if you go to the Apple world, you had DOS and you had Pro DOS. It was, 95%. Maybe there were some variants, but 95%
there's Pascal.
was one of those two.
Yeah.
There's Pascal too, but yeah, there wasn't as many choices.
Yeah.
Right. Well, there's many different types of DOS out there are, for flavors. I mean, look at ice cream. There's a lot of different flavors of ice cream. Not everybody can agree on chocolate or vanilla or strawberry. Some people want the Rocky Road. So
but it's fascinating to me that Tandy specifically, you could use either the word famous or notorious, but for a large variety of disk operating systems that you would not necessarily find in the other makes.
Well, Tandy itself didn't provide a variety. It was the aftermarket, the third parties that did.
Yeah.
So when it came to Coco, I would argue it's not really an operating system, but if you had a standard Coco and you plugged in a disk controller, there were ROM extensions that converted Extended Basic to Disk Extended Basic, and they gave you basic commands to access the disk drive and load files and format the disk and things like that. So I look at Disk Extender Color Basic not as an operating system, but an extension of the basic language that lets you interface with the contents of the floppy disk. Now, OS 9 which actually was not developed by Tandy. Microware is the company who made it. Was the actual true operating system for the Coco. It's multi-user, multitasking, etc. Now, in the arena of the Disk Extended Color Basic that Tandy made, a number of people created an aftermarket version of that with extensions to support, for example, a hard drive, because The CoCo Disk Extender Color Basic would not support a hard drive. So there were other forms of DOS where you could buy a different controller that would support a floppy and a hard drive. So those extensions had to be added, and support for larger type drives that Tandy didn't sell, aftermarket drives like double-sided, double density, high density, things like that. That's why there are some aftermarket operating, we'll call them DOSes, but they weren't Tandy. So Tandy didn't create confusion. But the market could create confusion.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just just purely observing that whether it was Tandy or the market, there's just so many different OSs for Tandy compared to other makes and models, and I wonder, what inspired so much variety, or what the market thought needed so much variety, and which you didn't see in the other makes. I think there's something a bit special about that, and I don't know if it's an advantage or an inconvenience.
Well,
there's definitely
on the Model 1, it had to do with features. The aftermarket DOSes were much enhanced over the ones that Radio Shack offered.
Yeah.
But they were still pretty much compatible. In the case of the CoCo, the first operating system that was ported over to it was called Flex, and has its origins back on the original Motorola 6800 machines that were similar to the CPM machines. If you've ever heard of the S50 bus and the machines based on that, they had a 6800 processor, and they had an operating system similar to Flex, or to CPM, called Flex. And when the 6809 came out, they came out with a custom version just for that. So you had word processors and all sorts of utilities, assemblers, compilers, and things like that ran on that. That didn't run on the standard DOS. They gave you a lot more capabilities, and what is the newer one?
ProDOS.
ProDOS, right? Yeah, and ProDOS, and ProDOS is kind of what already existed in many ways already existed in Flex, and then OS 9 had the multitasking as well.
Yeah,
and it was years after the Flex and OS 9 had different features, but like the subdirectories and things like that. I don't know why Apple never had any third-party operating system like that, but I guess that's just the way it is.
Well, I think the other reason Tandy, there was a lot of the OSs and peripherals and things like that, was Tandy used a lot of off-the-shelf. They didn't use anything proprietary as far as their hardware. And if you looked at their tech manuals, they actually had some very good tech manuals. And so people could actually, they didn't have to really reverse engineer a lot of the stuff. It was just all they'd do is crack the manuals open, and they could come up with the stuff. And the thing is a lot of the Tandy's computers were pretty much, they were, I would say, underpowered, but you could actually add more features to them, like double-sided drives and things like that. And so that's why the reason there was so many of that stuff that came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the original drives were what, 35 track?
Yeah, 35 track. They were the Shugart. Single-sided. They were just Shugart ones, and then they used that weird type of stepper motor. It was a piece of junk.
Solenoid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a little spinny wheel thing.
Right.
And they were just awful, and they can only work at 30 milliseconds. They could, if you go any faster, they would slip, and then they'd have to recycle again.
Well, see, the thing is, every time Tandy would have to come out with new hardware. They'd have to retool the software. They had to be compatible with the old and the new, and it was a lot of work. So yeah, they would come out with a new drive that could handle faster speed, but they wouldn't use it. They would just keep the I/O the same speed, and that was one of the first things.
Aftermarket did it.
Yeah, that was the first thing the aftermarket did, is increase the size and increase the stepping. And then you had double-sided drives coming. Then you had 80-track drives coming, and it was the third-party market that kept improving. And Tandy just was nose blind and said if we did anything like that, we would do it under OS 9. Because that was our gateway to the future. Hardware was OS 9. And by the time they really started getting OS 9 going with level 2, it was coming to end of life of Coco.
Yeah, there was one perfect example is the 64K upgrade. A lot of the people looked at the 6809 and said, wait a minute, we could make this into a 64K machine. Tandy only supported 32K, and they had that high and low bank memory kit. Sometimes they ran out of those kits, and what we would do is put 64K chips in there, and we would purposely make it into a 32K.
Well, someone was looking at the SAM docks, and the SAM was designed so that it could address 64K of RAM or 32K of RAM and 32K of ROM. I mean, it was right in the hardware.
Right, but the thing was the buyers found a special, I mean, from what I was told.
We could do this.
Well, it wasn't that. The reason they got the 32K chips is because of price.
They had failure chips that were only one bank worked or the other bank worked.
And you were actually jumperable to select which bank on which computer.
Right. So
interesting stuff. We got a comment too from Scott Wentz in the chat. Scott's one of our fellow Coco members. Scott also happens to now currently work for Microsoft. But when we were talking about the DOSes, Scott was saying that the Apple world was rife with DOS 3.3 patches. It's almost as bad as the Tandy world in that regard. And then he said, I think that more or less all of the 8-bit computers had many variants of DOS because they weren't extensible. When you got to more advanced operating systems, they could be upgraded in various ways without needing to release an entirely new DOS. Right. And he says, might be because of how much could fit on a hard drive or just more advanced nature of things when you got to the 16-bit era. So he's kind of commenting on some of the stuff we're saying. I'm probably responding out of sequence here. Brendan Donahue just joined us too. No, it's a great question, and because you've got a lot of experience in a lot of other systems, you're now comparing those to what you see in the Coco world, and it's interesting. Some of the things we kind of take for granted, like the thing that I still can't wrap my freaking head around, and David Ladd has explained it to me 17 times, but I think it's like RGB DOS or whatever it's called, where when the hard drives came out, because the Coco Disk Extended Color Basic did not understand what a hard drive was, and the concept of a partition or folders did not exist, what they did is they broke up this space into virtual floppy disks in the hard drive, and you created 255 drive letters on a hard drive, and you had to manage each one of those as individual floppy disk. That just blows my freaking mind how somebody could intentionally be this ass backwards in designing a system, but apparently that was a thing.
That was the way we had to make it work.
It was the only thing that was compatible with like the basic.
Yeah.
If you wanted, what
I was going to say is the IBM drive, when they started going beyond a certain boundary, like 2 gigs, you had to put virtual drives out there, different partitions to use a 6 gig drive. It was the same thing until they improved the operating system to handle more. And by the way, the way you did is you had the number of tracks, the number of sectors on that track, and what they did is they kept on increasing the number of tracks beyond what they had for the real number of tracks on the drive to handle larger space. Everybody has done some sort of workaround to the limits of the hardware.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there were hard drives like that for the Apple II as well, because I remember we special ordered in a drive for a customer that was, I don't remember how many megabytes, but you know, it was the same type of setup, and it was a patch for the DOS.
Yeah.
It was DOS 3.3, but there was a patch for the DOS.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
I think
if we,
the Apple
if,
II has what? I think it's 32 meg partitions max, right?
right.
Yeah.
Well, also, if we go to the building of the IBM PC, when they were designing it, they designed it where it only could handle 640K. Why? They sold the machine as, 64K, and they figured they would never make a machine that was over 10 times that amount of memory. So they figured 640, that's enough addressing space. And the rest of the thing that went up to a full meg, that was I/O space, screens and other things. So that's why back in the early DOS days of the IBM PC, we're dealing with high memory and all these tricks that we could get the maximum amount of RAM for the computer to boot with, so you could run your damn game.
Yeah. That was
you TSRs used that
Terminate,
unused
stay
space.
resident. Yeah. Terminate, stay resident. That's where your mouse
Yep.
drivers, your CD-ROM drivers, all that kind of stuff. Sound blaster type stuff. Yeah.
Yep, everything was
Yeah.
thrown up in a high memory. And then when we got 2 megs, you had a lot more room for the high memory.
Yeah.
And I still remember working at NovaLogic when we came out with the first 4 megabyte game. And they told us it would never sell because less than 10% of the computers out there, by the time we got on the market, would be able to run it. It was the #1 selling game because every one of those people that just bought a computer that had 4 megs were buying the frickin' game to show you why he had to have 4 megs of RAM.
Insane.
Well, there's another thing when you're speaking about OSs. Back in the 80s, Microware's OS 9, which a lot of people didn't think was possible, but back then the OS was designed way ahead of everybody else, where it could handle up to 4 gig sections of a hard disk, way before anybody else could.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Before hard drives that big even existed. Yeah.
Yeah, they were thinking ahead of time, where many others didn't.
Scott Wendt is also chiming back in. He said Apple had the advantage on hard drives that ProDOS was capable of addressing 32 megabytes. It was quite uncommon to hack DOS 3.3 to work on a hard drive. And then Jim Brain, which he could have used your words, Jim, but he used his typing instead. He said, not to play the "my computer is better than yours" card, but Commodore's logical drive nature allowed much more expansions without DOS changes. Michael Newman says QEMM was the best program ever. Is that the DOS, one of the third-party DOS memory managers? QEMM?
So, yeah.
No, that was a memory manager.
Qualcomm.
Yeah.
Was it Qualcomm?
Was it
DeskView, Quarterdeck, DeskView, and QEMM.
Jim says Commodore DOS supports a 128 gigabyte flat file system. Wow, that's impressive.
Yep.
What does Jim know about Commodores?
And you can't type dir to look or catalog to look at what's on the disk.
Oh, now James, don't be jealous.
Yeah,
I think
when
you got to trade off.
Yeah, when I sold PCs back in like 1989, before, like what Steve was saying, like having 1 meg on the motherboard, you had on your motherboard, I don't think you could never get more than 1 meg on the main motherboard, but then you had memory expansion cards, and you had an expanded memory card. And I remember selling some really high-end PC clones to run Lotus 123, and I had to install these expanded memory cards and put in the RAM drivers to access the expanded RAM so Lotus 123 could work on bigger spreadsheets. I mean, that was a high-end system. And that expanded memory emulation got built into later versions of DOS with the HiMemSys and the EMM 386, all those drivers. I remember when I booted my PC, I had a config sys file where I could choose 3 different choices. I had a menu coming up saying, do you want to run lean, do you want to run medium, or you want to run full? And if I loaded all the drivers, I couldn't run certain games. So I had 3 different startup configs for my Windows computer, depending on what games I wanted to run, what things I had to exclude from the boot process to have enough free conventional RAM to run, game X, Y, or Z. So the struggle was real.
Yeah.
We had to hire 2 more guys to our customer service line when we came out with that first 4 meg game, just to try and explain to the guy what 4 megs meant, because they were thinking it was the hard drive storage, not the RAM.
Right.
Oh.
Joy.
And then there was the fun of configuring all those hardware. You had to do it by hand. You had to put the interrupt jumpers and memory addresses,
the dip switches, and things like that. Yeah, before plug and pray.
You had to. You were lucky that if you got one of those multi-IO cards that you had to configure where the serial and parallel ports were.
Yeah. But that freed up several slots if you had the multi-IO with your multiple serial and parallel ports on one card.
Happy days when they came out with the motherboards with the built-in serial and parallel ports.
And BIOS changes for addresses and stuff.
Yeah. Progress. Good times. Yeah, we're up to, we got 11 viewers right now. It's not bad. How about we run another commercial break? If anybody needs to potty, I'll run a couple commercials, give everybody a chance to take your bio break, and we can come back and keep on chatting as long as you guys want to keep talking. So
Certainly.
We'll be back in just a little bit, folks.
Certainly.
CoCoTALK After Dark. CoCoTALK After Dark.
Hi, I'm Kieran Unscombe, author of XRAW, and your brain is resolving sensory input into CoCoTALK.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me. It's Original Gamer StevieStrow. Gameplay. To get your copy of a Gameplay Goodness Color Computer Gaming DVD today, head on over to 8bit256.com. There you will find several DVDs.
I'm losing memory
color
cells
computer
right now.
Videos by the Original Gamer StevieStrow. So to get your very own copy of a Gameplay Goodness Color Computer Gaming DVD, head on over to the Retro Swag Shop at 8bit256.com and tell them the Original Gamer StevieStrow sent you.
G'day, mates. This is Nick Marionettes, author of such color computer titles as Donut Disaster, Rupert Rhymes, and Rockstar Pilot. And I am here today to tell you about the world's most fabulous operating system, OS 9. OS 9 and its current incarnation, Nitrous 9, is the most advanced operating system ever created. And what makes it so good? Ease of use. I find OS 9 so incredibly intuitive that I haven't once cracked open the user manual, and yet I've been able to create such incredible games faster than the time it takes to sing Waltzing Matilda. Using OS 9, I expect my next game, Funstar, will be done this weekend and distributed exclusively on ROM cartridge. OS 9 forever.
Any resemblance to actual events to persons living or dead is purely coincidental.
Did you say you have to leave us, Steve Bjork?
About another 25 minutes.
Okay. Very cool. All right, so we talked about operating systems. What other horse can we beat? What other topics we got?
We were talking in different systems we've all had, and
yeah,
it's like when it comes to old systems, I had over 40 in my collection at one time.
Wow.
How many different brands was that?
How many different what?
Brands was that representing? You had 40 different types of systems?
I had, 6 of them were Apple, and 4 or 5 of them were Coco, and the rest were all different systems. I had Panasonic JR200, Auric. I had an Auric One and an Auric Atmos, and now I just have an Auric Atmos. The NEC Trek. The what else? Apple III. MSX Turbo R. Geez, I don't.
You're quite system agnostic.
Yeah, and I've written code for the. Well, I tried out the JR200 in BASIC, seeing how the programmable character sets and stuff worked. It's an odd dialect of BASIC. The the Oric I programmed in assembly, and it's kind of like an Apple with a single channel. What's that music card? Doesn't matter. I programmed an assembly on the Apple, the Acorn Atom. Even I've never had an Acorn Atom, but it's another 6847 machine, and the VZ200.
Wow.
I'm pretty system agnostic.
Yeah. Michael Newman's asking or mentioning the Timex. So there was the ZX Spectrum and the Timex Sinclair 1000. Anybody have one of those?
Yeah, I have 7 of them. ZX81, TS1000.
Yeah,
they're cheap. Take a dozen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Speaking
4K
about
basic.
Sinclair, did you guys ever watch that YouTube movie Microman?
Yeah, Microman. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about finding a Sinclair. Yeah.
Yeah. Fun to watch.
I had the what is it? This Plus 2 Plus, the Spectrum 2 Plus or something, whatever it is, that has the built-in tape drive.
Right.
The QL
Didn't have the QL.
QL had the 68008 in it. It was kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's kind of a neat OS in that. I was kind of a big Amiga person because I was a partner in a company that developed Amiga software. So I've got a 500 sitting here, and hopefully I can repair my old Amiga 3000.
Neat. Yeah. Michael Newman says, my family got it free by going to some timeshare discussion.
Which one? Which one did you get free?
A ZX Spectrum or the Timex Sinclair. Yeah. That's it. I think they sold for $99, right, when they were in the U.S.
Yeah.
With the membrane keyboard. I think they were actually a little bit slender, so they'd make a good
doorstop.
A good
They
shift to
were
go underneath the door,
really good. Yeah, they were much better doorstop than the MC10 because they were the right wedge shape and they were the right height.
Yep.
That was the whole Sinclair strategy to.
I found one at a yard sale about 2 years after they came out, and it was $10, I think.
Wow.
And I thought it was too much.
Yeah. I mean,
it had a good Z80 in it.
I wouldn't mind having one. Since I have limited space, it would take up very little room on a shelf just to have.
Yeah, if you can get one, get the what is it? The TS 1500, because it has the 16K built in
instead of the wobbly RAM pack that'll crash.
And it has the dead flash keyboard like the Spectrum instead of that horrible membrane thing.
And it's more like the Coco one.
Now the Spectrum, did they ever put in a real video display generator, or did they always use the Z80 to fake the display?
The Spectrum had its own video generator. It wasn't generated by the CPU on the Spectrum, but there were some wait states. So there were games like, I think, Carrier Command, where they were doing 3D, that they would render it to a buffer and then do a quick copy over to the video RAM during the when the scan resets to the top of the page, when you had more time to access the RAM.
Right.
So, but the funny thing about the TS1000 though, some of the guys that are out there, the fanatics that are out there now, they came up with higher resolution graphics modes on some of the games. But it's like the Atari 2600. You have no time to do processing.
Wow. Well, just want to interrupt here for just a second. We just got a response from Ed Snyder commenting on our CoCoTALK from earlier today. He said, "Great episode, guys. I noticed there was a little confusion on the sound chip being included on the new 4-slot MPI. It's a Yamaha YMF262 implemented with two YA512 DACs for 4-channel sound mixed into the final stereo output via external jack. So you'll have, for instance, channel A plus B on the left and C plus D on the right output. And then he's got a Wikipedia link for it there too. So this is a response to my posting of the replay of the episode in the TRS-80 Color Computer Facebook group. So if anybody wants to pull that up and look at the Wikipedia article, but since we were speculating on exactly what chip it might be, he has now told us more specifically. It is a YMF262.
Yeah, he told us earlier it was a 262. We just didn't know it was stereo output.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So now that answers the question. So it is stereo.
Yeah. So the music that I had posted that you played was for the 262.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So we were hearing what this was. So we'd hear theoretically what the Coco can do with this chip.
Right.
Now earlier in the Skype discussion for this show, I posted a few links to some sample music that came off of the ColecoVision and other just straight raw to the chip, so people could hear what the other sound chip options were for the Coco to compare if you wanted to play those.
Okay, so let me backpedal just a little bit. So
about 6:11 p.m.
Okay, well, your time zone. So I just one here that says ColecoVision Music.
The ColecoVision had the same sound chip.
Okay.
And that's got a bunch of different little tunes from different games and stuff.
Okay. Adam's Music Box. And this chip is the same chip that's in which sound card?
That is the same as the Game Master card and the what was the one that's off the serial port?
Tandy 1000.
Okay, so this is the same.
No, the new expansion off the
Sur Sound.
Sur Sound.
Oh, Sur Sound. Okay, Sur Sound.
Yeah,
okay,
and
so
it's and Tandy 1000. If that matter.
And the PC Junior.
Yep.
Okay, so does it ever get to the part where it actually plays music, or?
You've got it off probably.
Oh, here we go. What the hotel's going on here? Oh, it's just doing little samples, I think.
There's a few small samples, and then there's some of the tunes like from Omega Race and stuff like that.
Yeah, this is 12 minutes long.
Sounds like computer porn to me.
Yeah.
Very old school.
Okay. So this sound chip here is the same sound chip that's in the ColecoVision. It's also the same sound chip that's in John Linville's Game Master cartridge that Farfall is using and that is available for developers. And it's the same one that Alan Huffman is using in Sur Sound, his serial port based one. And as you can see here, it's a decent sounding chip. It's a very period correct chip-tuney sounding music, and it's good sounding. So it's three voices of music, 3 music channels, 1 noise channel, right?
Yeah, and it's square wave sound.
Square wave sound, right? And the only point I was trying to make earlier, and I think we've had and cleared this discussion, was when I was playing the Farfall sample, was I was just basically saying the Farfall music is not as complex as some other music, so don't judge the chip just based on that, because it's it's just 2-track music. It's not 3-track or anything else. So here we're hearing some like 3 voice harmonies and some. So here you hear more instruments at once, right? So
right.
Yeah, that sounds really good. And so this is what's possible with the Sur Sound or the Game Master cartridge. And so I would enjoy hearing a Coco game with music like this. Absolutely. So let's hear a couple of your other links now. So the next chip here that's called the Tomy SN7648. What is this one going to be, James?
Tomy? Oh, Baltimore. It's a song.
Okay.
It's somebody just translated it to the sound
Okay,
chip.
so what is the SN76849 chip? What is that chip similar to?
That's the chip.
Same one. That's the
same one.
Coco GMC or the Tandy 1000 or the PC
Okay,
Junior.
same chip. Okay.
Same chip.
Oh wow. Oh, this is that.
Yep. Baltimore Tarzan boy.
Yeah. And you can see here, these are the square waves. You can see the square waves.
Yep.
So that's kind of like an audio oscilloscope there, showing you the wave patterns, huh?
Yep.
Okay.
There, and the other one is the Doom soundtrack, which was actually originally FM music, but
Okay, on the same chip.
on the same chip.
Okay. Ooh, I like it already. Get out your shotgun. Now I know Duke Nukem did not appear in Doom, but I can just hear Duke Nukem right now too. Come get some. We can't hear you, Jason, at all. You're muted. Okay. It's time to kick ass and chew bubble gum. Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Yep.
Now,
It can do pretty good sound.
here's the thing, is when you get a composer writing for the capabilities of the sound chip, it really sounds good.
It does.
But when you translate something that was done for another style of music, it may not come off as well as you like.
Nah.
Yep.
Nah, I don't want to go down that road again.
No.
So
This is why Alan's stuff sounds so good, because he does take the song and translate it into what the capability of the system is. And like when his demo of his Frogger, dead on. He knows how to make the chip do it.
Gotcha.
Hey, the same guy has a Thedexter one also.
Did you just post that in there, Mark?
Yeah, I posted it in the Skype chat. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll switch back here. We'll take a look at that. This actually sounds better than it did on the Tandy 1000. Yeah. This is an iconic track, man. Yeah, I think what the Tandy 1000 version of Dexter did is it bypassed the percussion track completely, because I don't remember hearing drums in the Tandy version at all.
Well, they may have expanded on the original tune, because some of these are stuff that the person that posted it came up with.
I gotcha. So,
of course, now one thing that can be done on this output that you see that is a square wave, if you send it through a proper RC network, you can kind of sand off those little squares of the square wave and make it much more pleasing and will sound better in a speaker. Because square waves are really bad for speakers. They don't reproduce that well.
It's very hard to produce.
You get a ringing effect on there. So it'll actually swing past the point it's supposed to and then swing back down. So it'll ring on each one. If you put a little bit of filter on that, it really gets rid of the that ring and it sounds much better. That's the reason why some game systems sound better than others. Like the original Sega, original Nintendo, the music sound pretty good on those. But these third-party knockoffs that came out to emulate them, they sound really bad because they didn't put the filters on the audio.
Gotcha. Michael Newman says he's got to go. He says, great show, headed out, night all. Thanks for being here. Jim Gary's here. Jim Gary's been messaging me on a response to the video in the MC10. I shared a link to this in the MC10. He's been commenting on that, but he hasn't been commenting on the main video, so I asked him to come over here so we could all see what Jim's been saying. Hey, Jim. Yeah, man. There has been so many different systems, and I really do like the idea of, even though we're making new sound, we're adding new sound capability to the CoCo. We're using a fairly period correct types of sound hardware, so it's still a retro chip, even though it's a new implementation of it. I really like that. Good stuff. Sound, CoCo sound. CoCo sound, CoCo packs. We need more slots. We need more sound. We need more serial ports. What else do we need more of?
We need now games and software to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Software.
Cup holders.
We need
cowbell.
16
More
slot
cowbell.
We need a player to work with those new music
editor
programs and an editor to edit it for cross development off of the PC.
There you go.
All right, James, you've been nominated.
Well, the editors already exist. I was looking at doing a player. I've already done players before, so it's not that difficult.
So let me ask you guys a dumb question. There are some hardware differences between the different chips, and there's obviously some output differences. But when it comes to a coding perspective, and when it comes to a musical format, is it possible to have the same essential music track, and we'll call it, for lack of better terms, like a MIDI file? If you have these sets of notes stored in your musical data, would those notes play as the same notes on these 2 or 3 different chips, or are they translated differently from chip to chip?
Well, it depends on how much time you want your interrupt that sends the data out to the chip to take. Some of the music players are very simple, and they just dump numbers out for the different registers, saying what register to set with what value, and that's very, very fast. But there are others that they actually have notes, and they have pitch bends and other different effects that the player itself handles, and they actually generate the numbers that go for the registers based on internal timers and all sorts of stuff, but they're a lot slower. You can have, but you can emulate one sound chip on another, like the AY General Instruments sound chips and the YM chips that support the backwards compatibility. You can emulate the SN, the Signetics chip that the others have, but it's hard to go the other way because they have a broader frequency range on the General Instruments chip than on the Signetics.
Okay.
There's different capabilities. The Signetics chip has the advantage of being programmable with 1 byte tells what register and what data to send to it, and the General Instruments chip and the Yamaha derivatives, they require you program 1 byte for the address and then 1 byte for the setting. And then they can, on the chip we're talking about on that Multipack, it has up to 18 voices, but I believe that one also has backwards compatibility with the old YM chip, which was derived from the AY sound chip of the General Instruments. So some of the old chip tunes should be playable on it, I believe. But you can also have all the new sound with, you've got your guitar and different drums and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different capabilities out there, and they're all better than having to drive it through the DAC.
Right.
Back a few months ago, John Linville, when he was looking at bringing out the CoCo Game Master cartridge, he was talking about there's a specification called VGM that's out there, and it looks like it's a kind of a standard. It identifies which chip, and then it has instruments like MIDI type stuff. So I just posted a link in the Skype chat.
There is whole page dedicated to the YM and GI the original General Instruments compatible chips. A lot of the music comes from the Atari ST and over on the Sinclair Spectrum, and I don't know, several different machines. And then there's pages dedicated towards FM sound. I mean, there's dozens out there. So
I guess I was just wondering from like a musical data perspective, if value 128 represented middle C on all three different chips, for example.
They're different, but you can have a lookup table to tell it what to translate it.
Okay. Okay, I was trying to look for like a lowest common denominator. If you wanted to write music and have somebody develop music for your game, if there was a universal language where we can at least put the note data in this one structure and then just have a different set of routines to output that note data depending on if it's chip A, B, or C. Well,
there's MIDI, and then you would have to translate from MIDI to whatever sound you're...
Yeah, MIDI is like the universal standard at that point, huh?
Yeah, but there's easier ways to put the notes in there. Yeah, actually, when I did my games, I put the musical notes in as a code. A3 would be a particular octave range of note A, and my routine would then just translate that for what it was doing, whether it be doing it manually through the DAC, 6-bit DAC, or using the speech sound pack.
Right. Yeah, and I think I remember one of the first times we had you on, Stephen, we were talking about stuff, and I mentioned that I assumed you were a musician because you have so much music in so many of your games, but you corrected me saying that you're not necessarily a musician, correct?
That is correct. I do know music theory, but it takes somebody with, like, example, talent that Alan has to take music theory and be creative with it and produce the musical notes that sound pleasant.
Right.
And that's the key, is making it sound pleasant.
So, for example, when you put the music for Pitfall 2 on the speech sound pack, did you compose that music? Was that music given to you by Activision, or?
That music was given to me by Activision.
Okay, so you.
But then I had to do the translation for the Coco to do it.
Gotcha. So you didn't have to be the composer, but you still had to be the coder for it.
Same thing was in the case with Arkanoid. The music was given to me.
Okay.
But when I've worked at a lot of these companies, we had either on contract or on staff a musician that would go through and create the music for us. And we do it just as we had on staff or contract artists that would create the art.
Okay, so like Clowns and Balloons, for example. You didn't necessarily compose that, right?
James Caron did.
Oh, he did? Okay,
yes.
So he was a musician.
He had a little bit more music theory than I, and since it was me to come up with the creative code that made the game work in the first place, I concentrated on that. He worked on that stuff and a bunch of other things in regards to the game. And him and I worked together hand in hand on most of the games, and usually I did about 75% of the work, he did 25%. But occasionally, one of the games we worked on, instead of me getting the credit, I gave him the credit, such as Shooting Gallery. Because back in those days, Datasoft only gave one person credit for the game. Sands of Egypt. Sands of Egypt was the first multi-credit game.
Wow.
One of the things you got to be careful of when you're going from one chip to another is you have to know what system it was coming from, because they can clock the same chip differently from one machine to another. And it makes you have to transpose it based on the clock speed.
Right.
So it's like an instrument that's not in the same tune and the same key.
Exactly.
So you have to, but that's where the drivers come in. They translate depending on, because it'd be a totally different information I'd have to give the speech sound pack compared to doing it manually with the DAC.
Right.
On a little while ago, somebody said that the YMF 262 included all the YM 2149, for backwards compatibility.
No, I don't think it does.
No.
That some of their FM chips did, and some of them didn't.
Yeah, and I would say this one does not. So because I can't seem to find any technical details indicating that would be true.
It would be on the lower channels if it does.
Yeah, I understand, but I don't see any mention of it in any of the in the data.
Then that may have been after they eliminated it.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think the YMF chip is a really nice chip and whatnot, but I'm just wondering how hard it is to program. I mean, I'm looking at the technical details for it, and it's kind of...
It's timing. It has some timing issues because you can only program it so fast.
Yeah. But anyway, just something to consider. I think, Steve, to your point, I think probably being able to use these chips is going to require somebody to write some sort of library that you can load whatever version of the library it is that you want for the chip that you want to play for, and then you send your data to that library, and the library will figure out how to convert it to whatever chip it's going to play.
Essentially.
The other thing would be to make a PC program that would just take a base file and then convert it for a particular target, like the CoCo with
Yeah. One of the things that the Sinclair Spectrum people did is they created a universal tracker, so at least one person did, and then they had it generate take the same input and generate it for multiple targets. And it did all the calculations for you.
So almost like a cross compiler for music.
Yeah, that's true. But then you've got to put all the data for every one of the tracks on the disk, as opposed to doing it real time.
Exactly, and you've got to load in a separate player for whichever thing you're producing music for.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother logistical challenge, and I'm not going to be programming any of this shit, so I'm just curious. So it's like I'm not going to be dealing with this. So.
It's an excellent question.
Yeah. Inquiring minds want to know.
And that's the thing too with these sound chips. Now you're just talking music. What about sound effects in games? That's a totally different thing too. And
that is much more difficult to duplicate from one chip to another.
Yeah, but I am already looking at trying to write some sort of driver program that, depending on which system is detected, it will set up and then currently use, because I have to need that for any games I write.
Yeah.
And then I'll just make that available under Creative Commons.
Cool.
Hey, Jim, I don't know if you found the data sheet for the YMF262, but it says it's register compatible with the YM3812 OPL2 FM sound source. So it is backward compatible, but
the 3812 is an OPL chip, not an right. The YM2149 and the ones that came after it are the OPN series.
Right, they're patterned after the GI chips. So yeah.
Well,
I don't think there's any.
Yeah, I don't think the SSG, the PSG functionality is in the 3812 or any of the chips in that.
Doesn't look like it.
The thing that's nice about it, the TI 76489 and the YM2149/AY 38910 chip, they're pretty simple chips. I mean, they don't have a lot of complexity, so it's pretty easy for somebody to just write a little bit of code and get some sound out of it. So I don't know how hard it is to do that with the YMF262 or
it's going to require you're probably going to want to sit down with a tracker that is designed to generate music for it. And if you want to do custom instruments, you're going to have to sit down with an instrument designer, and there are ones out there already for the PC.
Got it.
It's a terrible problem to have at this point, right?
Well, yeah.
So, and I'm not playing sides. I'm not playing favorites here, but I like that Tandy 1000 sound chip, and we've actually heard it now do some things that I don't think it was pushed to do when it was a new chip. Like this, hearing how this guy did Thexter is a heck of a lot better than how Thexter did Thexter.
Well, there's also at some of these computer where they get to their get-togethers, they have music competitions, and they literally manipulate the channels on these chips to produce different waveforms.
Yeah, yeah.
By changing the values in more than once every 60th of a second, and they produce some really amazing sounds. The only thing I have against the SN sound chip is it doesn't have as broad a dynamic range as the General Instruments.
Right.
And but they all, as within the dynamic range it produces, it can produce pretty much the same thing.
And the notes appear to be, for the most part, I always thought of it as a very clean sounding instrument, but we heard some fuzziness there when it was playing Thexter and doing some drums. So like you say, I guess you can beat on it.
Well, they're manipulating the noise channel to do that.
Okay. So if this is probably similar to what we see some of Simon Jonassen's demos, where he's hacking the scan lines to get more colors on screen. We're now hacking the scan lines of the sound chip to get more sound out of it than it was initially designed to do if you follow the rules literally, right?
Well, it's more of the issue of, as you get to know the chip, you get to know its capabilities. Same thing with a new game system. Remember when the Xbox came out, the first games weren't that good, but then later they got much better. Yep. It's the same thing. You learn what the chip is actually capable of doing.
Yeah. So it's neat, yeah. But yeah, I was really impressed with the quality of that chip. And I think, I don't remember all the songs he had on it, but when John brought the Game Master demo to Coco Fest last year, he had a ROM that had a music player built in it too. And it went through a bunch of different musical genres and stuff. And it sounded pretty good. And to me, my fondest memories were hearing music on the Tandy 1000 musically. The Sierra Online games were just... just great master. What they did with only 3 voices. It's kind of like what people did on the Coco with 4 colors. For graphics and color. Sierra Online was doing with sound with only 3 voices. They were creating, musical masterpieces with some of these things there. And that stuff is just it's stuck in my head. Hearing, King's Quest and Space Quest and Leisure Suit Larry on that chip. For me, it's very near and dear to me. And I would look. I could not hear enough of that. Matter of fact, some of the I was just in a parking lot yesterday, and whatever was on the music in the parking lot speaker was using that chip, because I'm hearing like Muzak parking lot music going through loudspeakers that was using that exact same chip, and my ears knew right away. Oh yeah, I know that sound. I know that instrument. That's the Tandy 1000 chip right there. It was kind of cool.
Well, if you go and look at all the sound chips of the day. The Atari, not Antic. The sound chip is I can't remember.
What was it called?
The Pokey. The Pokey was also square wave. And you just had one more channel for music.
Okay,
and
4 voices and sound.
Right, and the AY chip, it was 3 channels and noise, and it had a few more settings, and like I said, it's a little better for dynamic range for especially for bass, but they all sound very similar.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is back in those days with the type of speed the chips had like that, you could only do square waves. It took a lot higher frequency to get in and kind of shape the wave to get the instrument the way you want.
Yeah, and the SID got around it by putting a bunch of analog filters on it you could adjust.
Right.
But and that's it also made for a more expensive chip.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. For what's being done for the Multipack, we can improve the sound with a little bit of filtering.
Yeah. And speaking of the SID and the Commodore, Brian Joyce had asked earlier when we were talking about systems, has anybody gotten the new Commodore 64 Mini system yet?
Somebody on the chat has. What was it?
Posted a picture.
Yeah. Brian Joyce, I guess, asked, but I don't know if he got one. I mean, I'm starting getting the people who have received them who are sending me notes wanting to know how they can upgrade it to put all the different things on it, and it's kind of a problem because the unit's not a 64 Ultimate, or a 64 Reloaded Mark II, so it's not a hardware implementation of a Commodore 64. I believe it's Emulator, and so a lot of people are saying, "Hey, can I put this little disk drive on it, and can I put Jiffy DOS on it or whatever?" And I'm having to tell them not so much, because it's an emulator. So a lot of the hardware that's produced, the unit's just not set up to support that. So it looks like a cool unit for game playing and whatnot, but I think people sometimes are getting the wrong idea about what it is and is not.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think we've beat the multi-pack to death. I think we've beaten sound to death.
Yep.
Is there anything else we can beat? We've been talking for 3 hours. I'm not running out of steam, but I don't know if some of you guys are. But do we want to pick a new topic here? I know Steve Bjork, you said you have to go soon, so we appreciate you being here. As always.
Thank you, Steve.
CoCoTAK is here. CoCoTAK's hanging. He's not. He's got no complaints.
Meow.
Keep petting me, and I'm good.
That's really it.
Yeah. Well, I know earlier today we talked about 2 weeks to CoCoFest, being excited for CoCoFest. I don't think we can mention that enough. Our little geek retreat that's 2 weeks away. I am definitely looking forward to that. Looking forward to rubbing David Ladd's belly.
No head.
Touching my belly.
His head.
Touching my belly.
We're buffing his head.
Buffing his head. I forgot it was some round object. So.
Bring the turtle wax.
So what are you holding up there, Richard? The shark cable.
Like a Scart cable.
Yeah.
You're muted. You're muted,
Richard.
We can't hear you, Richard.
Oh, sorry. There. Yeah. See, mine doesn't have the little button on it.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's how you can tell them apart in the dark.
Picking on Jason, huh?
Yeah. Jason's.
See, I have value added. I have a switch.
Yes. and a sound chip.
Yeah. But mine has little thingies. Yeah.
Mine is potato chip compatible, though.
Potato chip.
Richard's the switch is pushed before you get it.
Yeah.
Pre-switched.
Pre-switched.
Nice.
With all these different sound chips coming out, I may stop hating the MC10 as much.
They're making up for it, huh?
What are you going to hate after this? Yeah, you want everything to hate on.
To hate on it.
Well, we won't talk about that.
Well,
No.
hey, I did learn a lot
You
about
didn't
Microsoft
go there,
Basic.
did you?
I didn't go anywhere.
I don't know what.
I'm still right here. Still right here.
I'll just say meow.
Meow.
I guess I'll have to bring the popcorn.
Meow, damn it. Meow.
I need to bring a lot of popcorn, David.
No, seriously, CoCoFest is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I want to see Brendan. I think Brendan's still watching us. Hey, Brendan Donahue's watching us live on Facebook. I do want to see the Coco VGA again. I am more and more interested in this project. I like it. I think it's neat. I really wouldn't mind having one, and I've mentioned this to Brendan too. My biggest thing is that for me, VGA output is not ideal because I don't plug most of my stuff into screens. I like to plug my stuff into capture devices. That way I can watch it on my PC. I can use my PC monitor as my computer monitor, and I have the added benefit of being able to record it live while I'm doing it. So it's 2 for 1. And what I don't have is the ability to capture VGA. And the only way I'm going to get that capability is either have to buy a new capture device or get some type of VGA to HDMI. It's just another flustercluck. It's another box to buy. It's another thing to have.
What's that? I'm sorry. What'd you say?
A flustercluck. And so as much as I would like to have it,
sounds kind of like another term I've heard.
Yeah,
well, it kind of sounds
very
like
frustrated chicken.
it sounded like when you said it, Skype hiccuped.
Yes,
and it came out as something else.
Yes, Brendan. I do have the ability to capture from HDMI. So. Right. If you ever and I mentioned that to Brendan, I go, if you ever come up with the Coco HDMI, then we're good. And yes, I know they do make VGA to HDMI converters, but again, that's just another thing. And I'm trying to reduce the amount of things I have on my desk and et cetera, et cetera.
There's a little problem, Steve.
What's that?
He doesn't have the right to use HDMI. He has to go license it.
Yeah.
Which costs big money.
Yep.
Well, no, but they're third party. There are third party VGA to HDMI.
Yeah, you can do
adapters.
that.
Yeah,
You can do where they've already done it. They're paying the license fee and like that.
Right,
but to have somebody have a CoCo, no longer VGA adapter, but HDMI adapter,
Right.
don't look for that error.
Licensing, right.
Yeah,
right.
don't look for it to happen.
But again, that gets down to something I have to buy, which I don't want to buy, and then another thing I have to have on my desk. $9.99, you say, David?
Yes, I've got 3 of them.
VGA to HDMI converters for $10.
Yes.
Now, are they passively powered, or do they require some type of
USB
voltage injection?
USB.
Are they passive aggressive?
Are they passive? No, they're aggressive.
Only
they're
with Stevie.
aggressive.
Hey, I actually have a genuine question. What about Ed Snyder's S-Video adapter? What happened to that? He was building it, or I don't know if he.
Well, I think he's suffering from project creep right now. He's got so many projects. It's probably on a drawing board somewhere, and it's probably in a design phase somewhere. But you know what?
No, he actually had working boards going, and I think he was.
I have his prototype, and I think David Ladd has one too. But he was talking about redesigning that one to make up for some of the nuances of his, because his was designed for the 87 gimme. It wouldn't handle timing on an 86 gimme.
Right.
So he had posted one time that he was going to work on one of those that handled both timings and also offered cleaner composite and actually RGB output over composite. So it was going to be another Uber RGB to S-Video board. And, you know, so I hope that product gets produced, because I can capture from S-Video, and that's what I'm doing right now. That would be great for me to have an updated version of that. So Tom C says HDMI is easier now. I've tried to look for VGA capture devices, and for some reasons VGA is much more expensive on the actual VGA capture. Yeah, that's true too. So a $10 converter might convince me for $10 if it's yeah. I might just do that once I get to that point. But yeah, I do like the CoCo VGA project, and it would be nice to be able to get some good, clean captures of CoCo 2 games with these enhanced artifact modes, you know.
Now, you do have to modify the case, though, for it, right?
Well, I wouldn't. I would hire somebody. Yeah, I'm not a hands-on kind of guy.
You know what I meant,
yeah,
though,
yes,
is...
yes, yeah. You need to, yes. Additional
Are you
portals.
one of those people that would solder their hair?
No, I'm not that bad. I'm smart enough to know my limitations.
He's a 12 o'clock flasher.
As long as he doesn't melt his fingernails.
Negative.
There's a T-shirt out there that has a guy holding a soldering iron. It's just the hand in the soldering iron. It says, if it smells like chicken, you're holding it wrong.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yes.
It's like that one picture they show the girl working on a soldering iron, holding it from the metal part as she's using it like a probe on a motherboard or something like that. So.
Yep. Training videos or something.
Yeah. What do you got there, Richard?
He was cooking his fingers.
Okay,
which we
so
can't hear him again.
Yeah, Brendan says you don't have to necessarily modify the case. You could just take a ribbon cable and slip the ribbon cable between the case halves, which is what he thinks Monroe is doing. So yeah, that's another option if you want to have a protruding. It almost becomes like a CoCo hemorrhoid at that point when you've got this little ribbon cable and things hanging out the back, and so get your.
Do you know about that, Stevie?
I don't have any hemorrhoids on my CoCos. Thank you very much.
Oh, me and Coco Man are having a saber rattling contest here, so.
We meet for the first time for the last time.
Yes.
It's going to be a throwdown.
Yeah, there. How about that?
I got your popcorn ready.
We have Darth Maul with the.
Oh, now it's getting serious.
Oh shit! He's got the soldering blaster.
The gun. He's got the gun.
Wow.
Weller.
Pew pew
yeah.
pew pew.
Pew pew pew
Pew pew pew. Die die.
Is that a 125 watt Weller? It's a little
Wow.
Weller.
This is 100 or 140 watts.
Do
Yeah,
you know how
my
to
dad-
use that thing?
My dad had a 250. That's what I
It
learned to
just
solder.
depends. It just depends on what orifice you're going for.
This I use for very low. This is for like big like coax things with ham radio and stuff. This is actually this is pretty vintage. This belonged to my grandfather, although I got some new tips for it from Radio Shack before they closed.
You do not use something like that on circuitry like we have.
Yes.
You will cause
Oh,
major damage.
I haven't used one of those since 1980.
No, that is strictly for coax work and whatnot. I
Large, heavy
use
things.
it. Yeah, uses very infrequently.
For outdoor use only, or it will sterilize your grandkids.
So going back to that Coco VGA, that's only for the Coco 3, right?
Coco 2.
No,
Coco 1 and 2. No,
Coco
it's
and
not,
Dragon.
It's not. It's the Coco VGA is not for the Coco 3 at all right now.
No.
Okay. And how much is it? Does anybody know?
I think it's $100, right? 100.
100. Yeah, I think it's $100, and then if you want the composite to go with it, Ed will sell for $25. But he also has a modification where you don't have to use a composite board at all. You just pull it off the board itself.
Yeah. David's saying good night. Good night, David in Florida.
I was going to say,
Good night, sir.
Good
night, David.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, because what it doesn't provide is audio, right? So the VGA gives you only picture, and so you still need sound. And so with the composite mod, you have the benefit of getting the RCA output for audio too, right? So,
But you also have the luxury of composite if you ever need it.
Right. Yeah, so that seems the way to go. So for about $1.25, $125 ish, you get the Coco VGA and the Coco composite mod. It's 2 for 1. Yeah, it's compelling. It's neat, and you get the added bonus of like your 64 column modes and all. So he says $95 for Coco VGA. Ed is now providing another solution for the cable for audio included in the $95. So you could get a sound output only without composite for $95. That's
it's probably $95 extra. Yeah.
He actually says he's about out of composite kits. Okay, so for $100 to get it with sound. Heck, that's a steal. That's a steal.
Yeah.
I will eventually probably want to get one of these just to have it. You know, so it's not a need, but it's a wish list item.
Brendan talked about the Coco VGA today on CoCoTALK 53. He was talking about which ones they have in development.
Yeah.
The 32K Dragon, there's not enough room. You have to use six of the sockets in order to get enough space. But they're working on a new board design. But he said the Tano Dragon should be good. The regular Coco 2 should be good. They're working on the T1, a board for the T1.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. The main thing about this is that it gives you graphic or text modes that aren't available on a regular Coco.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's
palette registers.
Yep. You know, so you can definitely see why this is a Coco 1-2 project, more or less, not a Coco 3.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I guess I'll have to order one.
It's all VDG based, which the Coco 3 doesn't have a VDG anyway. So.
Right.
Does he have these available now, or they have to be ordered?
Well, if you were on the show earlier today.
I must have been gone to the bathroom at the time.
Yeah, he did mention. I think he's running low on supplies right now, and he's worried. But he's got a waiting list right now. So he's kind of up to Ed to produce them, and we already see Ed's got a full dance card. So depending on what Ed's able to produce, he may or may not have some at Coco Fest, I believe is what he said. Yeah, he did. He is saying in the live chat there's a waiting list. So,
hey, Grant, my notes say about 27 minutes after the beginning is where he talks about the Coco VGA. So you can scrub through and find that.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, and his website is CoCoVGA.com. and you can send an email to info@cocovga.com if you would like to discuss this with Brendan and get on the waiting list, et cetera, et cetera. So for $100, it's a great little piece of technology. Absolutely. And I believe
And there's infocom
also,
interpreter for it.
Yeah, there's an infocom interpreter for it. It is, I believe it is field upgradable, because I think he's mentioned that there was something that needed to be fixed. So if firmware updates come out, you can upgrade it at home. So that's a nice feature. So yeah, there's really not too many things not to like about it, other than if you're a purist and you don't want to do any type of piercings into the sacred shell of your Coco. If you don't pierce the shell of the Coco, then you have to get the hemorrhoid out back for that. So choose.
And it's also been nominated for a Coco Award at Coco Fest. It's him and me going up against each other. I'm pretty sure he's going to get it.
What have you made?
The RGB Scart cable, but
okay.
But I think it's going to be a no con. I even voted for Brendan.
There's an endorsement.
Yes.
Even I voted for the other guy.
So Brendan, this just in. He says, I heard from Ed there is a high likelihood of getting some kits in time to bring with me to Coco Fest. That's cool.
Good.
Okay, yeah. And I was only asking. I know you make a lot of things, Richard, but I didn't remember which one specifically was.
Right. Yeah. I was surprised that I got nominated. It was like going up against Brendan's Coco VGA, and I was just like, oh no, this is going to be unanimous.
That's like
unanimous.
That's like trying to enter a 10-line basic contest with Jim Gary in it.
Yes.
Well, they wanted it to appear like we had a choice of something to vote on,
Right.
choice. Would you like this gold brick or this dirty piece of coal?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Reminds me of that line in The Jerk.
You have a choice.
This is shit.
Yes.
This is Shinola.
Yes, but a piece of coal can keep you warm for a long time.
Hey, you hold on to coal long enough, you get a diamond.
Oh my God.
Oh, good time. Good time. So we punch drunk yet? Is it?
Yeah.
No, we're just getting started.
I need my rum.
No,
Where'd my rum go?
No, you don't.
Where did my rum go?
You're supposed to say
Why is
yo
the
ho
rum
ho
gone?
and a bottle of rum.
Yes. We still have 8 people here. I wonder if the 8 people watching are the same 8 people that are in the panel. Who knows?
No, they're probably one of them. 7 of them are probably Russian bots.
There you go.
Well, it's probably time to take one last reading of our telephone.
Yes, our telephone right now. We have 9 likes, 1 love, 3 ha-has, no wows, no sads, 1 angry.
Angry. That's impressive.
So angry.
That was probably Jim. That's where I got
Who
the
is
angry
that?
one.
Is that Troll or Troll
Smash.
Jr.? Is that Troll or Troll Jr. that put up the angry?
I did not.
No, I didn't know. I was out of there. I just got back in. I put the sad.
Okay.
I'm sad that it's ending. It's like the ending of Lassie.
Yeah.
I used to cry.
Michael Brandt's here. Michael says, "Niet." No, there's no Russians here.
Mike, why aren't you on the call? Aren't you done with work yet?
Not going to get us on collusion with the Russians.
I'm going to take one more opportunity here to do a shameful plug of the Retro Swag Shop. So if you like these programs that we're putting on for you at absolutely no cost to you as a viewer. We can't see you, Mark, right now because I'm full screen.
I know.
Hold that pose. So if you like CoCoTALK, if you like Retro Talk, and you want to own a piece of the Retro franchise here, we have lots of designs to choose from. Speaking of, we talked about Adventure earlier, and the dragon that looks like a seahorse.
Duck.
Duck. Yeah. So this is this is the Adventure Dragon. It's one of our designs here. So you can get the Adventure Dragon on a T-shirt. These are all drawn by Joel Adams. So we have lots of designs. These designs can appear on lots of different merchandises, including the new CoCoTALK After Dark design. We've got an NES. We've got a Sega Genesis. We've got my logo. Insert Coin's been the logo for my YouTube channel. We've got an Atari 2600. We've got Space Invaders. We've got Asteroids. We've got a ColecoVision. We've got a couple different Coco designs to choose from here. And then we've got a couple different CoCoTALKs. We've got now 3 different CoCoTALK choices for your wearing pleasure. And now through April 10th, you can get 15% off your entire order by using the promo code 15, the word FORYOU, 15 for you. So check out your retro swag today.
Which shirt do you sell more of, the CoCoTALK regular one or the deluxe one?
It's a mix. And there's Mark's shirt right there. Here is the new CoCoTALK After Dark shirt, looking very spiffy. Colors are nice. The contrast is good, huh?
Yep.
Looks really good.
It's a dark gray.
Like yeah.
Good.
Looks good. I got 2 on order.
Jason's-
Can't wait to get them.
Jason's wearing the red one. The red.
There you go. Yeah. So yeah, when it comes to the standard CoCoTALK and the deluxe CoCoTALK, it's about right down the middle, as far as people getting them. But of all the merchandise on my shop, the only ones that are really selling are Coco ones because we're plugging in on CoCoTALK. As we do more retro talks, hopefully some more of these because they're all great designs, and it's really cool artwork and it's all custom. It's hand drawn by a member of the Coco family. So
There'll be broader appeal on the retro ones than just the Coco ones. So yeah, it should be good.
Yeah, we're hoping. And so, I make, $15, $30 a month on T-shirt commissions. I split that with Joel because Joel's the artist, and then the other $15 pays the podcast hosting bill. So we're not getting rich here, but it is a piece of it's a little piece of something you can own to say, hey man, thanks for doing the show. So hey, Eric Critchlow just joined us, right? As we're wrapping up. Hey Eric, how are you?
Hello, Eric, and welcome.
Yeah. All right. So have we beat this one to death tonight?
Absolutely.
Just
we haven't beat it enough.
It's gone.
One quick little note.
It's just a pile of goo.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
What, James?
All right. The patch for the Coco 3 ROM to make it faster, it looks like that's going to work.
Okay.
So it'll take a little more time than the MC10, but it looks like I've got the worst part of it worked out. So that's just good news. Hopefully I'll have it by the Coco Fest.
So what's the idea? You can have some data lines you poke in BASIC, or you can have like a little binary you load, and so it patches
due to the number of patches, it's probably going to require a machine language program that you load in. The one patch that patches the parsing code does not let me catch the old calls, so I have to go through and patch the ROM everywhere it's called.
What else going to get patched now? Some of it's floating point stuff.
The multiply is going to be swapped out. It's going to have a jump at the start of the multiply routine in the floating point, and it's going to call my floating point routine that uses the hardware multiply. It's going to patch the code that converts from ASCII to floating point. It's going to call the hardware multiply using 1/10 to multiply instead of dividing by 10, so that we can use the high-speed multiply. It's going to patch what are referred to in most references to Microsoft Basic, the char get and char got functions that get the next character of the program or the previously loaded one, in case it needs to reload it. And if I have room, I will try to patch. There's also a 16-bit multiply in there. I haven't thoroughly tested the code on the MC10 yet, so I don't know if it's buggy or not yet. But it does a 16-bit multiply using the shift and add, and I can replace that with hardware multiply, another jump to a section of code that's going to be in high RAM.
Be interesting to see something like Forest of Doom, which is pretty much all basic. See if this has some speed up on them.
Well, you'll get with all my speed ups on the MC10, all of them, which is a whole bunch more. I get about 8%. So I figure, based on the percentage differences I saw on these, at least 4%, hopefully 5%, on everything except math-intensive stuff. Anything that uses a lot of multiplication is going to be at least 30% faster.
Wow, you scared Steve off.
Yeah. It's going to be, it depends on what you're doing, but like All's benchmark, it cut the MC10 from 159 to, it's now down to 105. And since the Coco can run at double speed, it's going to be down in the 40-some second range or something.
Wow.
On that. And a lot of the astronomical calculations for calculating positions of satellites or stars will be a little faster. Fourier transforms, a bunch of stuff. So it looks like that's going to be a go.
Cool.
Cool stuff. Cool stuff. Well, 2 3-hour shows in one day.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, you guys are troopers. Thank you all for being here.
It's no problem.
Don't forget our people on Facebook.
Yeah, I want to just go back and scroll through who we can. Daniel Shepard's been here. Scott Wendt has been here. Jim Brain has been here. Brendan Donahue has been here answering some of our questions. And Michael Newman. And Jim Gary. And Brendan and Tom C. has been here. James Diffendaffer posting a link. Eric Critchlow had joined us. I hope I'm saying your name right, Eric. I apologize. Tom C. says, put this show out of its misery, meaning put him out of his misery. So we are taking away time. Yeah, we're taking away time from his packet radio right now. So we got to get him back to that. So excellent. Well, thank you guys for helping to do 2 shows in one day, and thank you everybody who hung out and watched with us. It was kind of fun talking about different things and having some different people on the talk too. So I want to thank some of the people from the Florida Retro Club.
Yeah, cross-platform people
bringing us some Apple talk to our Retro Talk, and I look forward to more of that. So, all right, so we're gonna play the outro, and we're going to call it a night. So thank you, guys. On behalf of who's still with us now, Steve Bjork left, and a few other people left that were here earlier, but we still have Grant Leedy and Jim Brain from Retro Innovations, and Mark Overholzer, and Jason the Coco Man, as seen at PenFest 99 and 2000, signing autographs at Coco Fest this year. Richard Lorbieski of Boyson Tech, James Diffendaffer, and David Ladd, and myself, StevieStrow. We want to thank you all. So we'll see you some other time.
Good night, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
I like that video clip.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. And we're off the air.
They're off the air. Yeah.
It's a wrap.
Oh, yes. What do you mean?
Where are the credits?
He doesn't have credits for CoCoTALK After Dark.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, most
I only
of us
did
are on
2
the regular
shows.
show.
I only did 2 shows today because Stevie promised me twice my normal rate.
And you believed him?
He promised me ice cream.
I don't know. I got a division by 0 error.
And the final emoji count are 9 likes, 1 love, 2 ha-has, 1 sad, 1 angry.
So angry.
Angry. Hitler. You made me sit here for 3 hours against my will.
Smash!
Let the Hulk in here.
Yes.
How do you get
Tomorrow we got to do 3 shows.
Smash.
shows?
So, what?
Good luck with that.
What are we going to do now?
We should start Retro Talk.
Retro Talk.
After dark.
Dark.
Where did the I go? I heard it got left in somewhere. Gone. What happened to it? Did Dallin get upset about us kidding him about it and change it for you, or what?
No, I have like a bunch of different versions of it.
Oh.
So,
I think you were using like the prototype track, and then you went to the other one.
I've got like 5 different strains of that recording that he sent me. So. And you know what? You know the funny thing is too is that what was I going to say? You know how it took like 24 hours to process the past couple weeks?
Yeah,
Today
last week.
It processed pretty quickly.
Yeah, processed in just about 4 hours.
I noticed that. I'm gonna have to finish it. I kind of caught
slow night for videos.
Or maybe they improved their processing back end.
Or maybe there's no one watching them and they just approved them all.
Or maybe everyone's leaving YouTube because of demonetization.
Don't forget they had that shooting this week too. So.
Ugh.
Yeah, well, we got 91 views, so that was the last count I got.
Yeah.
That's updated. 101 views now. Wow.
Damn.
It's already broke 100 on its first day. That's good. That's a good
good.
sign. Last week broke 200. So that was our stride when we were on our original YouTube channel. We were averaging about 200 views by the end of the week, and so we're getting back up there.
And
so can I ask a question?
Isn't that a question?
Well, no. Is the Coco Crew podcast, are they not going to be advertising our show anymore, or what's up with that?